14そのすべてを紹介していきたいと思います。
はい、じゃあそのすべての謎に答えていただくためにですね、今日は任天堂の宮本茂さん、そしてコメンテーターとして渡辺浩二さんにおいでいただきました。
どうもよろしくお願いいたします。
Not long ago, I decided the Nintendo GameCube is my favorite console. A controversial take, I know. Despite being a quote-unquote 90s kid, many of the consoles that came out during this era missed my attention span by a fair margin. My formative years were here, so the idea of holding a controller and getting through a game just wasn't there for me, though I did like the pretty pictures. I, like many a 90s kid, was subject to the age-old ritual of being handed an unplugged controller and told to play. This was famously done by my aunt, a gamer before I even knew what that was. While I was often encouraged to go outside and be active, my aunt, subtly, with the grace of a ninja, incorporated video games into my life, ready to play. So, play I did, with the controller eventually plugged in, even. It being the 90s, I grew up on a steady diet of Mario games with my family. By the end of it, I would like to think that I was a fairly competent kart racer and party goer, if I do say so myself. By the time the 6th generation of consoles rolled into view, my parents were quickly learning that I wasn't really vibing with the whole sports thing. But those video games were pretty cool, and so it was that the GameCube entered the picture, complete with Luigi's Mansion, the first, on November 18, 2001. Not long after, we had one of our very own.
True Nintendo lovers like Irshad Hamid lined up as early as noon today just to be the first inside the Soho nightclub.
We're just waiting for the GameCube to come out. Everybody's so anxious to play with it and everything.
Once inside, game fans say the experience was nothing short of exciting, with 32 big-screen, high-definition Panasonic TVs, each featuring one of Nintendo's highly anticipated games. What have you played so far?
I've played Super Smash Brothers. So
how is it?
It was pretty good.
Luigi's Mansion was the first time my eyes really started opening up to all the characters I'd known and loved up to that point being put onto newer, better, bigger stuff. Was I any good at the game? Of course not, but this was the future, or at least it felt like it while creeping through Luigi's Mansion in the basement of my grandma's house on our Indigo Nintendo GameCube. A lot of my awakening to video games happened around this time. We got a PS2, and while I enjoyed my first few games on it quite a bit, once I played Kingdom Hearts, well, I never looked back. But as fundamental to my core as Luigi's Mansion and Kingdom Hearts were, there was arguably a third that truly took hold of me and has never left my consciousness for 22 years. That game, of course, being Pikmin, the first. Not a launch title for the GameCube by any means, but it was hot on the heels of Luigi's Mansion, and provided Nintendo fans with a look at something smaller, weirder, and completely fresh as an IP within the Mario-tinted landscape.
My name is Reggie, I'm about kicking ass, I'm about taking names, and we're about making games.
When Pikmin launched stateside on December 3rd, 2001, I was approaching games the way I would a good buffet, helping myself to anything that looked remotely interesting. But, unfortunately, it would not find its way into my life until a bit later. Fast forward a little over a year. It was 2003, and my grandma had moved from the house I grew up in to a much bigger, newer one. Not long into living here, I distinctly recall, one day, just like any other, in which she revealed to me that my aunt got 2 new games that I would get to try out. One of these games was Pikmin, and the other was Animal Crossing. To return to the buffet analogy I presented a moment ago, many new games were introduced to me in this way, back when quite a few of my family members casually played games off and on. Naturally, I was eager to see what the hype was all about. I wouldn't get into Animal Crossing until a couple of years later. It was a little too chill for my tastes at the time, but Pikmin, the weird-looking game with the weird aliens, attracted my attention almost immediately. At this time, I would have been 8 years old, going on 9, with no concept of who famed Mario creator Shigeru Miyamoto was, or my fascination with Japanese culture, or any of that stuff. All I knew was that I was mesmerized upon starting the weird-looking game with the weird aliens. The conceptual stages of Pikmin were very different to what we see today. The Pikmin themselves looked remarkably similar to Punies from Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door. Back then, the gameplay involved AI chips that would make the characters behave a certain way. Somewhere in these murky stages of conceptual prototyping, the Adam and Eve idea would be experimented with, where the setting was more primitive and the gameplay more sim-esque. Eventually, the team settled on a design drawn by the game's character designer Junji Mori, who sketched beings so darkly cute that it would make the Hot Topic Tim Burton segments of my brain burst into flame. Much of this info is taken from the very informative Ask the Developer interview Volume 10, posted online by Nintendo themselves in the lead-up to Pikmin 4's launch. This interview was a fascinating read as a nearly lifelong Pikmin fan, and it's hard to point towards a better well of info than the origin story straight from the mouths of these superstars. In said interview, Miyamoto-san would casually slip in his famous ant story in regards to the creation of Pikmin. As a casual observer, one may notice how the Pikmin look and act similar to ants, moving en masse, swarming creatures, taking their remains and other random goodies back to their base. This is something that was not lost on Miyamoto-san. While not the origin of the idea for the game, it would become a quick and easy way to explain the way the game works, going down into the annals of history as mythical legend.
なんですよね。分かりやすく言うのに、今でも見ますからね。だからそれは分かりやすく庭のありって言うんですけど、別にうちの庭を取材しながらこれを作ろうと思ったわけじゃなくて。そうですよ。
If someone walked up to you on the playground and went, "What's Pikmin like?" all you would need to reply was, "It's like ants." As children, I feel it's a near universal experience, observing ants outside out of sheer fascination. For many, it's one of the first bugs they ever witness, making Miyamoto-san's ant analogy cozy up immediately in everyone's brains no matter their age. A talent for universal appeal the man himself is quite gifted at. You see, oftentimes Pikmin is described as a real-time strategy game, and this is true to an extent. What the developers would later term dandori, from a real-life Japanese word, is the structural core to what makes Pikmin click. Broken down into its component kanji, dandori uses steps and take to provide a piece of vocabulary roughly equivalent in the English language to plans or arrangements. You could use this word to apply to things in everyday life, mostly of the terrible adulting variety, like groceries and paying bills, but when used in Pikmin, it feels like a third eye opening. I've never been good at strategy games, let alone of the real-time flavor, which is why it's remarkable how Pikmin is something approachable for anyone of nearly any age. The core concept is simple. You play as a little dude who uses another little dude to make more little dudes until you have an army of little dudes who can complete tasks and kill bigger dudes. Where the strategy part of the real-time strategy comes in is how efficiently you perform these tasks, a la splitting up your squad. Pikmin will work by themselves once you've given them something to do, which is fantastic for multitasking, but can also lead to gruesome death if not planned properly. As an aside before moving forward, for this video I will be pronouncing this word as hokotate, differently than I have in the past. This is in keeping with 11-1 Hokotate-cho, Kyoto, Japan, Nintendo's headquarters and name of inspiration. So why is there a little guy commanding a bunch of other little aliens? Our story begins with Captain Olimar, a worker for the company Hokotate Freight. Pikmin immediately sets itself up as a working class story with a working class protagonist, which is something that really comes to a head in the sequel. We'll get there. While out on a much-needed vacation, of which Olimar was no doubt enjoying some smooth jazz and a cup of tea, his rocket ship collides with a meteor. PSA, watch where you drive, and especially watch out for other drivers, even if those drivers happen to be meteors. The meteor sends Olimar hurtling towards a mysterious planet, with bits of his ship breaking up in the atmosphere upon descent. Olimar soon discovers the planet's atmosphere, oxygen, is poisonous to him. His life support systems will only hold up for 30 days, but after that, he will die. You may notice how fully and immediately Nintendo raises the stakes in this game. Gone are the whimsical adventures of an Italian plumber saving a princess. This is the Nintendo GameCube MFer. Luigi is hunting ghosts, and Olimar is going to die in 30 days, and this is not your mom's video game console. I jest, but Nintendo's US-based marketing of the GameCube played out pretty much exactly like that. I must admit, as a young child playing this game for the first time, this intense setup had me thrown back in my seat. While Pikmin is immediately approachable by anyone, gamer or non, it can be awful intimidating with its in-game 30-day time limit. When discussions around Pikmin 1 arise on the internet, oftentimes people will jump to said time limit, with there being camps of people who love or hate it. While it can present a respectable challenge, the good news is this time limit has a little bit of leeway. Olimar's ship, the SS Dolphin, that's a Nintendo GCN prototype name in-joke, has 30 parts you can collect over the course of the game. Of those 30, only 25 specific parts are required to leave the planet alive and achieve the average ending, with the other 5 being flashy add-ons that Olimar can do with or without. This means even if you have a few days where you don't get any parts, you can balance it out based on how many you acquire in one day. Do 1 part a day for 25 days, and you're back off to space, no problem. Do multiple parts in one day, and well, you've got some more wiggle room to really explore and soak in everything Pikmin has to offer. Which, yeah, the average ending is fine and all, but the other 2 endings offer more substantial payoff, or, in the case of one, implications. We'll touch on that later. For now, we go back to the cute. The Pikmin are plant-like beings that Olimar soon meets shortly into his first day. Whether they're actually called Pikmin is entirely up to the player's imagination. Olimar only calls them this because they resemble food from his home planet, Pick carrots. Like Olimar, Nintendo too decided to go with something along the lines of a nickname that just stuck, like when you're a grandpa and your grandchildren call you a name that just becomes your name for the rest of your life. Pikmin, in our real-world vernacular, comes from the Japanese word for counting small animals. Japanese has many counters like this, but for one animal specifically, you would use Ippiki. Having so many little characters on screen had the developers counting them in such a fashion. Colin Reed, Pikmin's system programmer, thought they were being called Piki as their name, and, well, here we are. If you count over 1, these terms change based on number. 2 is Nihiki, 3 is Sanbiki, and so on. We could have lived in a world where this series was called Hickman or Pikmin. Could you imagine? The first Pikmin you meet shoots out of a similarly plant-like device. Olimar nicknames this too. Onions. And before you know it, you're off to the races. This first day is essential in teaching the player everything they need to know about their little new buddies. Throw Pikmin with A, swarm with the C stick, and give them something to do. Acquiring the pellets around the area, and eventually enemy corpses, awards you with more Pikmin, with the youngin converting them into Pikmin seeds. You'll quickly have more than you know what to do with, but the Pikmin, well, they'll do whatever you need them to do. This tutorial day, as it were, is part of what I meant when I stated that Pikmin is approachable. Anyone can pick up a controller, follow the on-screen prompts, and realize what they're making happen on screen. This, too, was intentional. As stated in an equally informative interview with Nintendo Power, Rest in Pikmin, via the Nintendo Power Pikmin 1 strategy guide, Miyamoto-san wanted to create a, quote, game not only for regular gamers, but also for those who haven't played games before, unquote. Later on in the interview, he reveals how Pikmin started with a more complex control scheme. By the end of it, most of the game's actions were boiled down to the huge, satisfying, green GCN-A button. There are other controls, of course. You can dismiss Pikmin with X, whistle them back to you with B, but the A button is truly the capital V verb of Pikmin. With it, Pikmin are thrown, but what happens next is entirely dependent on what you throw them at. It was this foundational game design decision that likely hooked me in at such a rapid pace, purely out of my own childish curiosity to see what would happen when I threw Pikmin at things. So, with his first ship part in tow, Olimar embarks onwards to the next area of the game, and with the blasting off of his ship, so too does your hypothetical hype levels. It's here where Pikmin, from a gameplay perspective, gets serious, and where you settle into the core gameplay loop. From here out, each day will be limited in time, and enemies will rapidly be introduced as you go. Drop into your selected area, do what you can with the time you have that day, whether it's collecting ship parts, growing your Pikmin population, or all of the above, and then blast off into the planet's upper atmosphere. Olimar chills here each night, planning out his trip for the next day. The Pikmin follow him, which you soon discover is because they cannot survive on the planet's surface at night. An in-game day in Pikmin lasts around 13.5 minutes, though time won't progress in menus, allowing you a moment's respite to take in the map of the area. This becomes especially important when you find Olimar's whimsical radar, something he no doubt also named himself. You'll soon discover our protagonist has a fondness for this. Not long into the game's second area, the Forest of Hope, you'll notice some odds and ends scattered around that make you stop and think, is this Earth? The impact site had a cardboard box, sure, but the second area is home to tin cans. Between all of these items, as well as the oxygen makeup of the planet's atmosphere, Earth is the logical conclusion to jump to. Before Pikmin 2 came out, all we could really do was speculate on that front. The sequel, then, would proceed to smash all doubt from our minds and laugh mockingly for us even entertaining the idea that this planet wasn't Earth. It's from this fact that most of the theories about Pikmin, including my own, stem from. The game's being set on Earth raises hundreds of big and small questions, something I'm not sure Nintendo quite prepared themselves for when making the game's setting so familiar. This too, however, is one of the many things that sets Pikmin apart from the rest of the Nintendo club. It's a cute game on the surface, to be sure, but delve deeper into its waters, and your mind begins to be assaulted by thoughts of a possible nuclear war in Pikmin's past, why the wildlife looks the way it does, how the Pikmin came to be, why the days are so short, and the unstoppable, relentless torrent of theories as to where the humans are. When I played Pikmin 1 for the first time, these questions didn't come to mind immediately. As I said before, the implication of Earth was vague enough to give benefit of the doubt. But even as young as I was, after playing 2, it began to nag at me. I wanted to know more. I didn't just want to play Pikmin, I wanted to know why Pikmin was the way that it was. It was this very train of thought that carried forward in my mind like a time capsule 9 years later, becoming the catalyst for the creation of this very YouTube channel you're viewing right now. But that's a story for later. It's likely because of these more man-made objects scattered around that you'll notice how Olimar, the Pikmin, and the creatures themselves are all miniature in size, at least in relative comparison to us humans and our human things on Earth. The early days of both Pikmin 1 and 2 were rife with comparisons of this nature. The aforementioned strategy guide has a picture comparison showing the characters next to something we, by the time we read the guide, would no doubt be intimately familiar with: a Nintendo GameCube controller. This comparison works well on a visual level, and also further confirms that us Americans will use anything except the metric system. Nintendo goes out of their way to get players conceptualizing what Pikmin would be like in real life, and for those of us kids prone to imaginary fantasies, this only added to the appeal. All of this that I've talked about so far sinks in at only the day 2 mark of the game. Rarely had I seen other games present this much rich depth in the opening moments alone, particularly when I first played Pikmin in 2003. The Forest of Hope not only introduces us to Pikmin's enemies, it opens to a serene morning with an absolute banger of a field theme. To this day, I will throw the Forest of Hope song on a gentle blast during my shifts as I try to relax myself enough so as not to succumb to the creeping dread of working a job in society. I italicized that part in the script, so I hope you felt that come through. Pikmin 1's mesmerizing soundtrack was brought to us by one Hajime Wakai, whom you may know as one of the composers from Star Fox 64 a generation earlier. Pikmin obtained several composers pitching in throughout its lifetime as a series, though Wakai-san sets the stage perfectly in 1's OST, with songs that stick in your head and never leave. Each stage of Pikmin will have the default field theme erupt into more tense battle music, followed by the gentle, music box-esque wind down of the day with the sunset versions of each theme. This trend would continue in later titles, with 3 even having rainy day versions of each theme, and, well, rain in general. With this in mind, I hope you can understand how immersed I already was upon fighting my first Bulborb. The small ones are a warm-up for the player, offering a quick way to test out Pikmin throws and swarming without too much risk. Fighting a proper red Bulborb farther ahead, however, will likely introduce the player to their first encounter with Pikmin Death. I briefly skirted into how intimidating an opening Pikmin has, but what really locks you in is the first death cry of a Pikmin you hear. As I sit here, writing this, I distinctly recall the emotion of dread that washed over me upon hearing this sound. Were my 8-year-old ears ready for this level of emotional damage? You bet they weren't. In this, Nintendo did not hold the player's hands. Pikmin grow fast and numerous. All it takes is pellets or the corpses of dead foes, but having your Pikmin die at your hands because of a mistake sets the tone of responsibility Pikmin is going for. Mother Nature, you see, is unflinching. Animals die and are born in a continuous cycle, and the food chain is a very real thing in place for every type of ecosystem on our planet. At age 8, I had barely begun to understand science through my just beginning elementary school education, but Pikmin threw a lab coat on me and told me to strap in. Part of me feels that these themes of the beauty and cruelty of Mother Nature in action within Pikmin stem from the game's earlier prototype. In this, Pikmin set forth boldly in the year 2001 with a kind of realism unheard of as of yet in a Nintendo property. A game rated E for everyone, the back of the box suggesting mild violence, but with a descriptor box not big enough to contain the enormity of the lessons being put forth on display in this piece of entertainment. Suffice it to say, Pikmin is indeed the sort of game that anyone of any age can give a whirl, though what you take from it evolves over time. Through it all, Pikmin does not shy away from respecting the player by giving them responsibility over these adorable little aliens in a brutal, dangerous world. There's a well-known playstyle for the Pikmin games, the so-called no-death runs, in which insane people attempt to play through the games with no Pikmin deaths at all. I feel if I were to really put my mind to this task, I could probably succeed. I would feel all the better about it since Miyamoto-san himself has described this playstyle as 10 out of 10. But alas, being where I'm at in life as a 29-year-old adult man who cannot quit his day job, I simply don't have the time or energy. My deepest respects to those who do though. Not only is that a 10 out of 10 playstyle, it's also a guilt-free playstyle, in which one is not haunted by the death counter in a Pikmin game. There are only 3 types of Pikmin in the first game, and you meet the second type not so long after the first. The Forest of Hope introduces the yellow Pikmin. With their aerodynamic ears and affinity for casual terrorism, they're a formidable addition to Olimar's growing army. Yellow Pikmin would see the most changes over the 4 games, with their powers and features varying every time. The red Pikmin, meanwhile, have always had the same 2 highlights. They like it hot, and they do more damage than other Pikmin types, presumably due to their spiky noses. Is this lack of change simply because red Pikmin are perfect and without flaw? Maybe. One can't really say for sure. The forest navel is the third area you venture to, and with it, the blue Pikmin round out the game's roster of characters. Blue Pikmin have, and will always be, good at one thing: swimming. This may sound underwhelming at first, and it is true that they're the butt of most of the fandoms and Nintendo's jokes, but I'm here to state that maybe blue Pikmin aren't all that bad. While having only one skill may seem like a downgrade, this simply means that they are true masters of their craft. If any other Pikmin so much as dips their tiny toes in water, they will begin doing what looks like a rave dance as they drown, waiting for you to save them. If one was so inclined, leaving a blue Pikmin idling near a drowning buddy will cause the blue to throw them out of the water and save their life, making them a sort of lifeguard with this hidden second skill. Sadly, the skill would only be present for Pikmin 1 and 2, but later games would see them turn into tiny marathon swimmers, no doubt able to compete at the Olympic level. Throughout your adventures into these new lands, each night treats the player to one of Olimar's many voyage logs, a feature so important to this game that it would be a cardinal sin to not mention it. Essentially, the voyage logs serve as a way to recap the day you just had. Oftentimes, they'll reference something that happened to Olimar and the Pikmin that particular day, though they can also be utilized as mini tutorials. Most critically, however, is their world building. If one half of Pikmin's world building comes from the game's environments and themes, the other half is shouldered by the game's writing. When I jumped into this game, my naive 8-year-old eyes thought I would be playing as a funny spaceman. What was presented to me, instead, was Captain Olimar, hardworking space freight captain, a loyal and loving husband, father of 2, and a man with a remarkable insight into biology and engineering. The voyage logs, which are typed out by Olimar himself, open up the player's eyes to things like Olimar's homeworld, the company he works for, the demands of his boss, how much he misses his family, and the impending, creeping dread that he will never make it off of the planet alive. On some days, when nothing of particular interest happens, Olimar won't have much to write. On others, he's delving into the concept of an afterlife on Hokotate. These expertly written logs were the work of one of the engineers working on the game, as Miyamoto-san and the game's co-director Shigefumi Hino divulged in the Nintendo Power interview, though for the life of me, I cannot find out who specifically this writer was. According to Hino-san, the man read 4 books a day, something I could have only hoped to accomplish when I was younger. Miyamoto-san forced him to join Pikmin for this role while he was in the middle of another project. The original Japanese text was localized for us Western audiences, and the rest is history. You would be hard-pressed to find a Pikmin fan who doesn't remember how in-depth these logs were, and by the end of the game, they had me completely invested in Olimar as a character, putting him, in my eyes, as one of the most interesting Nintendo characters ever written. If only to drive this point home further, Olimar has only risen higher in status for me, as I find myself relating to him more and more as an adult, whereas when I first played the game, I thought, wow, this guy could be my dad. Several days into the game, you'll have probably had your first experience with a boss. Pikmin would go on to be known for its fearsome boss fights, epics of grand spectacle that have left an impression on nearly everyone who played them, but one had a bit of early installment growing to do into what it would become. You see, the first game does have bosses, all of which can do quite the number on your Pikmin population, but these are just treated as enemies, like any other. No grand fanfare, no cutscenes, just Olimar and his Pikmin waltzing into the boss's lair and forced to deal with the horror that plays out. Pikmin 1's bosses come in many sizes and flavors, like the beady Longlegs, a spider who cannot stop dancing, or the Gulix, a watery blob that appears in the impact site on odd-numbered days later in the game. These creatures are equal parts deadly and horrifying, though some more than others. Enter the Smoky Prog, or whom I would describe as the KH1 Sephiroth of this game. You see, it can be somewhat difficult for first-time players, my 8-year-old self included, to stumble upon the Smoky Prog accidentally. The creature awaits in the distant spring, the game's pre-final level, and arguably the most difficult area of the game. The distant spring was already intimidating enough, being host to environs mostly full of water and newer, deadlier enemies, more than happy to tear you to shreds. The Smoky Prog, meanwhile, only hangs out here until day 15 of the game. With the steep ship part requirement to find the distant spring, this effectively makes the Prog this game's secret boss. Personally speaking, I was oblivious to this thing's existence until I was old enough to explore internet forums, at which point the game turned into something of an open book. Upon discovering how to meet it, I booted Pikmin back up and got to work. You find the Prog waiting in an egg that looks like it had too much paprika on it, something my father-in-law would no doubt salivate at the mouth upon seeing. Approach the egg, and before long, Mr. Smoky will bust out of there, making a beeline for your landing site and uprooting any planted Pikmin, if any. What makes the Prog so deliciously deadly is the smog shedding off of its back. Pikmin die to this immediately, with no chance to save them, like in the case of drowning, meaning swarming is out, and your throws must be calculated with masterly precision. If you ask me, I don't find the Prog incredibly worth it to fight. The reward for your spoils is a gold pearl-like object, which nets you 100 Pikmin of whichever type you choose, but you're just as likely to lose that amount of Pikmin if you're not careful when fighting it. More importantly, what in the HE double hockey sticks is this thing, and why is such an eldritch abomination hiding in the game? According to the enemy reel, it's a malformed version of this guy, which only raises more questions. Veteran viewers of this channel will know that the Smoky Prog and I have something of a love-hate relationship, it being the very subject of one of my more popular Pikmin theories from way back when. Since playing Pikmin 4, that video is only really good for a quick laugh before moving on with your day. In fact, Pikmin 4 has jumbled around a lot of old ideas within the fandom, but that is a rabbit hole for another time. With the distant spring unlocked, players will branch off into two paths, one of the game's endings, or the pursuit of the very final area of the game, the final trial, which as you can tell, is final. To unlock it, you must gather every ship part the previous 4 areas had to offer. Otherwise, you're down for the game's normal ending, if you got enough required parts, or bad ending for failure. The bad ending is a pretty funny one, mainly due to how unexpected it is. Olimar keels over, and with the Pikmin desperate to save him, their only idea is to bring him to an onion in an attempt to keep him alive. To their adorable little credit, this plan does work. A dark Pikmin seed sprouts, and from what we can see, this ending has Olimar turn into a Pikmin. This is all fun and jokes until, you guessed it, Pikmin 4, which turns the idea of this ending into a crucial plot point. Nintendo is keeping us on a wild ride, and I'm just along for it with my bucket of popcorn. The final trial plays its name pretty straight, being a small area with a multifaceted puzzle challenge requiring the skills of all 3 Pikmin types. Best this puzzle, and your reward is this hulking son of a gun. The Emperor Bulblax is probably the most understated final boss of the series, but no less deadly. In betweenst your cries of, "Girl, he thick," this beast can obliterate your entire squad in mere moments with his giant mouth and agile stomping moves. There are some good ways to cheese this battle, as with anything, but it all serves as a mere victory lap. Being the final area, with only 1 ship part to its name, the secret safe, none of this is even required for Olimar to leave the planet. Olimar, ever the family man, remarks that he may even use the money from the safe to grab some souvenirs for his wife and kids on the way back home. Is there anything this man can't do? Upon gaining the final part, you're treated to the best possible ending of the game. Olimar wishes a sad farewell to the Pikmin, not realizing he would be seeing them so much more, and blasts off back to Hokotate, an entire swarm of Pikmin onions following him as far as they can, before they too must return back down to their own planet. Back when Pikmin 1 was the only game, this ending made fans drool at the possibilities. The aforementioned swarm of onions showcases Pikmin types never before seen, with colors like black, green, orange, light blue, and pink, a later addition in the series, being visible. Back when the long wait for Pikmin 3 began and I was replaying Pikmin, I would sometimes amuse myself by adjusting my TV's color settings so that the reds, yellows, and blues would all look like different Pikmin types entirely. This form of pretend was but one of many things us Pikmin fans would do to get by as we aged further and further with no sign of Pikmin in sight. And so it was that Pikmin, the first, came and went, leaving behind it a legacy that would hold fans tight for actual decades. I touched on it briefly before, but Pikmin's atmosphere and themes were revolutionarily dark for its time. And I don't mean in a Luigi's Mansion dark sort of way. In a sea of bright, colorful, wacky games, Pikmin presented itself as such, whilst hiding underneath the surface a cornucopia of somber and mature storytelling and gameplay mechanics. A game about a space dad trying to escape a hostile alien planet before he dies, in which he must use other aliens to achieve this goal, very likely at the cost of their own lives. We have Shigefumi Hino to thank for a lot of this, as he divulged and asked the developer. Nintendo had a reputation in 2001 for its quote, bright and vibrant designs, unquote, stemming from Mario and Zelda. Hino-san intentionally went for what he describes as a somber, mature, and mysterious world. In this, Hino-san understood the assignment. While the other games do keep this tone to a degree, I find the first Pikmin game exceeds most highly in this regard, it being just positively dripped out in capital A atmosphere. With all of this, Pikmin 1 had left the strongest possible impression on my young self. More than any game that came before it, Pikmin 1 completely and utterly showed me what video games were all about. You know, even if I wasn't any good at it. And so, with my young child brain completely floored by what I had just played, I was but left to wonder, what could possibly come next?
Control is good. You can see how good in Pikmin 2, only for Nintendo GameCube.
Once upon a time, we lived in a reality where a mainline Pikmin game would launch only a few years after the one before it. For me, I was lucky. Having played the first Pikmin in 2003, not only had the sequel already been confirmed straight from Miyamoto-san himself, but it was only 1 year away from being in my hands. Before the sequel had been confirmed, Miyamoto-san would go on to state that he wanted Pikmin to become as popular as Mario. Where we stand in 2024, this hasn't happened, and due to no fault of Pikmin by any means, Mario is just too much of a multi-generational icon. Standing from the bottom and looking upwards from the first Pikmin, though, the sky was certainly the limit. I, of course, wish Pikmin was on Mario's level of stardom, but, you know, we have to take what we can get. On the bright side of all of this, Nintendo's concentrated effort to get every Pikmin title on Switch around the time of 4's release has brought in a huge influx of new fans that have always heard about Pikmin but have never gotten the chance to play it. This video you're watching now is a testament to that very fact, a recounting of tales from a time before a lot of modern gamers were ever even born. And it's with that thought in mind that we enter the realm of Pikmin 2, a sequel that thrives on the phrase, bigger is better. Picture it, 2004, an era of flip phones, Shrek dominating the public consciousness,
Onions have layers.
and most importantly, a tremendous year for video games. 2004 held within it gems such as Half-Life 2, a game I will talk about in more detail outside of my theories at a later date. Around this time, for me personally, I was 9 years old, going on 10. Not quite a cool double-digit kid yet, but nonetheless a kid fully invested in what was happening with video games. I didn't acquire Pikmin 2 immediately when it released. Little had I known, the game would launch very shortly after my 10th birthday. To commemorate the occasion, I had invited over a few friends and held a high-stakes Yu-Gi-Oh tournament. Venue, my bedroom, in which I, convincingly or not, pretended to be possessed by the spirit of Yami Yugi. While I couldn't pull off his majestic hair, I would do the flourishes with the cards and speak in the deepest, manliest voice my 10-year-old self could muster, rambling on about the heart of the cards. In my recollection, I lost the tournament. The heart of the cards did not favor me that year. So it was that shortly after these events, I would acquire the September 2004 issue of Nintendo Power, Volume 183, emblazoned upon its cover was beautiful artwork, showcasing Pikmin 2, alongside previews of the upcoming Resident Evil 4, Metroid Prime 2, and Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, seen here being called Paper Mario 2. Amazing. This cover near perfectly encapsulates what made the year 2004 such a big stinking deal. Well, I don't remember if it was seeing this that made me aware of Pikmin 2's existence, or something else entirely. It wasn't long before I convinced my family that I wanted this game more than anything in my entire life. Thankfully, with both Pikmin 1 and 2, the copies I own today are the very ones I speak of in this video. Pikmin 2 released in the United States on August 30th, 2004. The Japanese release, meanwhile, was April 29th the same year. What this means is that Pikmin 2 launched during the kicking off of the school year in both the United States and Japan, something I have to wonder if Nintendo did intentionally, that is, following the game's fall 2003 delay. With the bloom of a new school year, so too did a new Pikmin game bloom into existence. For me, it was my last year of elementary school, and the tension surrounding a new school experience was palpable. I didn't have time to think about that though. I had Pikmin 2 to play. Nintendo has de-emphasized it in more recent years, but much of Pikmin 2's marketing was centered around claymation artwork of the characters and creatures from the game. This is what I often refer to friends and colleagues as Nintendo's claymation era, though rather than an era, it was more centralized to specific games, most notably the Mother series. Pikmin 2 was positively adorned in this claypocalypse. The Nintendo Power cover, the advertisement for the game in Japan, the strategy guide, and even the game's very cover art and manual all featured this charming portrayal. This was the work of one Wataru Yamaguchi, an illustrator who, over the years, has worked on a number of Nintendo classics. In an old Nintendo interview with Yamaguchi-san, here captured through the Wayback Machine, he would express how Nintendo wanted to move away from the colder CG artwork of Pikmin 1 for something warmer. It's here now that I must express my most sincere "Hontoni arigatou gozaimashita" to Yamaguchi-san for these illustrations. While they were only present for Pikmin 2 alone, I now envision this clay art style whenever I think of Pikmin. Let's not get it twisted, these illustrations were adorable. Never have I seen a set of artwork display so much of a game's personality and character the way this did, and it's something that's genuinely stayed with me to this day. Where Pikmin 1 was about the somber, lonely atmosphere, Pikmin 2 busted in with these clay figures to express an altogether different kind of tone, and a tone the game itself would share. Pikmin 2 opens right out the gate with where the first game ended, Olimar returning to his home planet of Hokotate. It's here that we are introduced to two new series characters, and the other two playable characters of this game, Louie and Olimar's boss, the President. It's also here that I want you, the viewer, to burn the image of Louie into your mind. In a traditional Dungeons & Dragons alignment chart, Louie would fall somewhere between chaotic neutral and chaotic evil. Much of the intrigue to his character lies in this gray area of indifference. What is his deal? Is he deeper than we think, or simpler? I once had a friend like Louie who, like him, was equally hard to scrutinize. You'll want to get used to Louie. He comes up several times later. Wasting no time, Olimar's boss gets down to brass tacks. While Olimar was off fighting for his life, Hokotate Freight got itself into a serious pickle. A hungry space rabbit got a hold of their shipment of golden pick carrots, and to ride it out, the company took on a massive loan. It's here that Pikmin's unrelenting, brutal frankness continues. The ship you worked so hard to put back together in the first game is hauled away before your very eyes, sold off to pay more of the company's debt. The president is beside himself. Olimar, out of the blue, has a bottle cap he must have gotten off screen in Pikmin 1 as a gift for his son, as I certainly was not privy to any bottle cap. Upon analyzing this gift without consent, the nearby ship determines it to be worth 100 Pokos, Hokutate's currency of choice. Reducing their debt to a nice even 10,000 Pokos, the president demands that Louie and Olimar journey back to the planet where Olimar found this treasure, setting them to task with finding more so they can save the companies behind. With that, Olimar and Louie are forced to blast off, Olimar not even getting a word in edgewise. At this exact moment, upon rewatch, Pikmin 2 assaults me over the head with depression. I don't think it's a controversial statement to say that after everything Olimar went through in the first game, him not even being given a chance to see his family immediately put back to work because of his company's accident is just downright cruel. Pikmin 2, from the outset, establishes itself as a game about unrelenting capitalism. Whereas the first game was about survival, the second game is about saving a big corporation. Where in the first game you collected ship parts to return home, the second game you collect treasures to return to your boss. Playing this as a kid, I felt bad for Olimar, sure, but I was just happy to go back and see the Pikmin. The broader implications of these heavy themes would not hit me until I was older. This is part of the game's lighter tone at first glance, though really it just trades one heavy move for another. At least in the other 3 games I could sympathize with the situation at hand. Here, I have to help out Big Corpo? It's no wonder Olimar had so many complaints about his boss stuffed away in his writings. This turns Pikmin 2 into a fascinating case study of how game stories can change their meaning throughout the years upon replay. My entire relationship with Pikmin 2 has fundamentally changed as a working adult, with next to no spare time for my hobbies. Why should Olimar be forced back to the Pikmin planet after nearly dying on it a short time before? Why should Olimar not get to at least see his family, gift his son that bottle cap before leaving? In plain English, he shouldn't have to deal with these things, but the demands of the job say he should. What's funniest about this is that Olimar, through his overarching character development, seems to just become plain obsessed with the Pikmin planet, irregardless of his job. Olimar is married to 3 things: his wife, his job, and PNF 404. Speaking of PNF 404, otherwise known as the Pikmin planet, Olimar and Louie are separated immediately upon arrival. This will become a running gag. In your first instances of control, you are taught how to switch between these 2 protagonists. A new mechanic introduced in Pikmin 2 that would be repeated again in Pikmin 3 and, to a lesser extent, in Pikmin 4. There are no major differences between Olimar and Louie outside of their whistle noise and color scheme. The important takeaway of this new mechanic is the splitting up of tasks in a way that wasn't possible in the first Pikmin game, all at the touch of a button, the GameCube's Y button, to be exact. Take Olimar somewhere and get his squad of Pikmin busy, and while they're doing that, switch over to and have him do something else. This does take some getting used to, but it quickly becomes a welcome feature, and something I do miss when replaying Pikmin 1. If there was any doubt the Pikmin planet was Earth, Pikmin 2 erases all speculation upon finding your first treasure, a Duracell battery. Many of the treasures in Pikmin 2 are themed after specific brands of the day, something Nintendo had to change in the remaster for Switch due to copyright. This makes playing the GameCube original and the Wii version a more unique experience by default. For newer, younger players, this also makes playing those versions like experiencing a time capsule. If my own son decides to play Pikmin 2, and further, if they decide to play one of these versions over the Switch, I can almost crystal perfectly picture how many stories surrounding these treasures I could retell. We've got Skippy Peanut Butter, Underwood Deviled Ham, freaking Snapple. Many of these treasures feel like I just went to my grandma's house. All of that aside, seeing these branded treasures is also just part of Pikmin 2's unique charm, a level of charm I feel it has on its own, distinct from the other 3 games by way of its clay marketing and introduction of brand. If you needed more evidence that this was a game about capitalism, look no further than here. as the gloom of debt hangs over you like a rain cloud while you watch the numbers tick ever slowly downwards with each branded treasure collected. Nintendo, real life is already difficult as it is, but this game can hit a little too close to home. This precarious juggle of charm and bleak reality is something Pikmin 2 excels at, and only furthers the balancing act Pikmin 1 pulled off with its dual themes of cute and deadly. In other words, Pikmin 2 is a game that excels in gallows humor. Outside of the two captains, much of the gameplay loop from 1 is repeated here, just without the pressure of imminent death in 30 days. Doing away with the day limit was something Nintendo did in response to fan feedback from the first game, with some not pleased at the prospect of starting over if a mistake was made well into the experience, a mechanic that mirrors real life. Indeed, you can take as much time as you want to in Pikmin 2. The day counter will just keep ticking. There have been many reports online from other players that the counter can eventually get so high that it stops counting altogether. I've never been patient enough to test it for myself, though I hear it can get quite high. If anyone watching this has tried for themselves, let me know. This lack of a time limit turns Pikmin 2 into a very cozy experience without too much edge, one that would be replicated with Pikmin 4. As with the first game, you'll traverse a handful of areas, discovering all your old favorite Pikmin types as you go, and collecting as much treasure as you can. I would like to imagine it was sometime around this point in my life that I started turning into a little bit of a collector, in no small part thanks to Pikmin 2, though that didn't stop me from foolishly throwing away all of my old toys when I got older. Present day, I'm like that with video games, and I think I would rather die than switch to an all-digital library. I can't help it. I like to look over and see all of these games, their cases and box art, their history, to be able to fully relish that experience for what it is. For me, the physical aspect of a game is fundamental. This may be partly why a series like Pikmin appeals to me on so many levels. By putting the player in the role of an outsider to the Earth we know, collecting things that we find normal and treating them as special treasure, Pikmin 2 and onwards manages to recontextualize the mundane, to put a spotlight on just how wonderful our world really is, even if I rarely set foot out into it. In addition, the Pikmin themselves have advanced several levels in cute since the first game, with Nintendo giving them a whole host of new idle animations to show their distinct personalities. When you have certain arrangements of Pikmin types and numbers in your squad, they will begin humming different tunes, something that opened up room for a couple of Easter eggs. Ai no Uta, a song by Japanese artist Strawberry Flower, could be sung by the Pikmin when arranging 20 of each type. As a kid, I would always do this on purpose, eager to do the Pikmin equivalent of spinning the good stuff on a jukebox. As with the branded treasures, this hidden goodie would be kept in the Wii re-release, yet dropped in the 1+2 Switch remaster, giving it a dump truck more lane points. Replaying it on Switch now, though, it simply amazes me how great the game looked. The Pikmin, the environments, and the effects had never looked this good before. For a 2004 game, Pikmin 2 was a stunner in every sense. Not long into the game, you'll be thrown into Pikmin 2's other big new feature, caves. Imagine caves to be Pikmin 2's version of what dungeons are in some RPGs. You'll traverse the caves 4x4, dealing with deadlier groups of enemies than you would on the surface, culminating in a boss at the end. It's a familiar formula and one that works exceedingly well in the gameplay palette of Pikmin. In caves, the more traditional surface-side experience of Pikmin is given 500 grams of caffeine and amped up to 11. In caves, Nintendo decided to get a little devious. You see, caves are where you'll find large hoards of treasure, but the cost of these veritable gold mines is the danger at hand. Caves in Pikmin 2 taught me of the fragile nature of mortality. They're where I encountered most of my Pikmin massacres as a kid, due in large part to their traps, falling enemies, bosses, and randomized layouts. Each floor will have the same basic structure, but things will be slightly off from player to player, trip to trip, minus some exceptions. This makes caves, from the get-go, a more intimidating prospect than anything else presented to the player in Pikmin 2, made all the worse by the fact that you can't grow your Pikmin army within them, as the youngins cannot follow you. Nintendo gives the player a hazard warning as an aside heads up for what's to expect, but outside of that and the Pikmin 2 player's guide, you are on your own. Players do have the option to hit the tempting reset button on their GameCubes should the unthinkable occur, but I never did this. Whether that's because I was just that cool, or because I was a kid and didn't even think to try it, I'll let you come to your own conclusions.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
You can immediately feel the difference in hashtag vibes in playing the caves of Pikmin 2 thanks to the way the music shifts on the fly. Pikmin 2 sees the return of one's composer, Hajime Wakai, with assistance from KK Slider's doppelganger, one Mr. Kazumi Totaka. Fun fact, Totaka-san is also the voice actor for Olimar, adding yet another character to his famous roster. Caves are where the music of Pikmin 2 goes the way of jazz, not in sound, but in form. Any individual song that is playing on a given sublevel or cave can change tone depending on the presence of enemies, which captain you're controlling, and what type of terrain is around you. This makes the music within caves nearly impossible to get stale, and the more subdued tracks chosen for these dark levels makes for some of the most relaxing listening experiences I can have these days. Seriously, go look up these songs. They are incredible. The different flavors of music between Olimar and Louie versions of tracks portray their personalities well, with one being more upbeat and adventurous, and the other just making you feel kind of weird. Caves are also where you are introduced to all 3 new Pikmin types in Pikmin 2, and the only place you can find them if you want more, a la sacrificing up to 5 of your other Pikmin for 5 seeds from a candy pop bud. For Pikmin 2, Nintendo went in a weirder direction from the original trio's elemental triangle, now presenting us with Gravity, Poison, and Parasite, respectively. The gravity angle for Purple Pikmin was something Olimar tossed in as a quick fun fact in Pikmin 4, but one that makes these beefy Pikmin all the more mysterious compared to their siblings. Purple Pikmin are, in no uncertain terms, the problem solvers of the Pikmin series. Their intense weight, physical strength, and Mario-style ground pound when thrown means that most enemies can't deal when fighting them. 2 gives them a quick, spammable stun that works on most foes, and the ground pound gives them an extra hit of damage that even red Pikmin cannot reach. These tiny sumo wrestlers are great, and they're also the key weakness of one of the series' most mysterious boss monsters. White Pikmin, meanwhile, are my favorite, and the GOAT. I've always held this opinion since playing Pikmin 2, and every time they've appeared since, I've lost my collective What these tiny Pikmin lack in strength, at least in later games, they make up for in just about every other way. They're faster than other Pikmin, immune to poison, and can sense treasure buried underground that other Pikmin cannot see. The real cherry on top of their phone book of abilities, however, is that they are poisonous. If any enemy manages to eat one, that enemy will suffer a hefty amount of damage, albeit at the cost of the Pikmin's life. This ability only works when they're eaten, but it serves as an effective ace in the hole should things go south for you, as they frequently did for me. This makes the sudden loss of white Pikmin sting just a little less, knowing they went out fighting. These dudes are heroes. The third and final new Pikmin type are Bulbmen, a parasitic type of Pikmin that have taken host within the familiar Bulborb enemies. You never actually get to see what these parasite Pikmin look like, though my headcanon always imagined them as green, due to the faint green glow emanating from Bulbmen stems when they're dismissed. To acquire Bulbmen, rather than using a candy pop bud, you simply have to
close your heart to it
and take out the Bulbmen's leader. Doing so will understandably cause the little ones to panic, at which point you whistle them on over. Brutal? Yes, but I don't think the Pikmin planet had Olimar in mind on the food chain. Bulbmen are helpful since they're immune to any and all hazards the game can throw at you. They are too helpful, unfortunately. You cannot bring Bulbmen to the surface with you like you can for purples and whites. They've not appeared in the series since Pikmin 2, and I hope they know that we miss them dearly to this day. With the game's treasure collect-a-thon, and the addition of the randomized caves with their sublevels and curated enemy layouts, Pikmin 2 adopts what I would term arcadey gameplay. I would not describe the first Pikmin this way, or even the third. Arcadey, in the way I'm using it here, means Pikmin 2's game mechanics convey a sort of fast-paced, addictive feel, not dissimilar from a game you would play on an arcade cabinet circa the 1980s. I believe this stems from the debt repayment aspect of the game, combined with the unlimited number of days and piece-by-piece cave/area design. It releases a certain level of dopamine finding treasure, and even more so collecting it and adding it to the game's expansive treasure catalog. In a nutshell, collecting make brain go burr. In total, Pikmin 2 has 201 unique treasures to collect, all of which are broken up into a subset of 25 themed series that each piece can fall into. Part of the fun of acquiring said treasures is unlocking their corresponding notes in the Piklopedia, a detailed encyclopedia viewable from the game's area selection screen. The Piklopedia owns. The moment you open it up, your face is blasted with the most serene tune you've ever heard in your entire life. A tune I love so much I slowed reverbed it on my other channel. Shameless self-plug for Slowed Saturn. Slowed reverb music at a somewhat consistent upload pace. The Piklopedia is where much of Pikmin 2's writing is condensed, essentially letting you get even more glimpses into Olimar's character and the overall world of Pikmin, a la his voyage logs from the first game. Most treasure notes from Olimar will have him musing about things related to the treasure, or tangentially related stories, or sometimes things completely random, but most often musings about his life and experiences. Peppered throughout will be little callbacks to the first game, or observations on Louie and the Pikmin. On the flip side of the Piklopedia is the Creature Viewer, in which Olimar puts on his biologist hat and gives us in-depth details about the way these creatures behave and function within the Pikmin planet's ecosystem. Between just these two first games alone, I'd like to think young me's brainpower increased exponentially, bursting past what public school could teach me at the time. The Creature Viewer also allows you to throw Pikpik carrots at the enemies, just to see what they'll do to them. It's basically a virtual zoo. Later on, Louie's notes are unlocked for the enemies, showcasing his terrifying appetite and how many ways he can think to answer the question, "Can you really cook that?" And that's not even getting into the ship's advertisements for the treasures, putting an inverted spin on everyday objects that we use all the time in real life. Needless to say, I give the Piklopedia an A++. It was so missed in the original Pikmin 3, absent for some reason beyond my understanding, that they brought it back in Pikmin 3 Deluxe. Bravo. Chef's kiss. Speaking of the game's writing, in place of Olimar's voyage logs, Pikmin 2 features emails from a variety of characters back on planet Hokutate. These emails can either be for Olimar or Louie, and often Olimar's family are there wishing him well, despite the president basically backstabbing them and denying them a chance to see their father. We get insight into others too, such as Louie's family, loan sharks, and literal spam bots. While these writings don't hit the same emotional punch the voyage logs of the first game did, those are saved for the treasure notes, I would argue. They still serve as a humorous way to learn more about everyone throughout the series, and a delightful treat at the end of each day. Overall, I would call Pikmin 1 the harder game of the two, most obviously due to the time limit. That's not to say, though, that Pikmin 2 is easy, by any means. The bosses in the caves are some of the most fearsome bosses seen in the series to date, many of whom return for a victory lap in Pikmin 4. There's the pileated Snogret, a burrowing Snogret that can hop around, or the man at legs, a spider with a machine gun, or something like one, at the very least. The creatures that inhabit the Pikmin planet are terrifying, twisted amalgamations of common creatures we know of, but there isn't really any comparison for one of the game's most memorable bosses, the Water Wraith. I've talked exhaustively at length about this foe in many of my Pikmin theories, so I won't go too in-depth here, but boiled down, the Water Wraith is terrifying. Nowadays, I've grown so accustomed to it that I'm no longer afraid. In fact, I find it to be kind of adorable, but when I first played Pikmin 2, having only just hit double digits, I had never seen anything like this before in a game. The entrance to its cave, the submerged castle, lives up to its name by only allowing blue Pikmin in by way of its watery terrain. Once inside, things will play out like normal for a cave, plus some spooky music. Take too long, however, and the Wraith appears, a transparent, humanoid-shaped mass on stone rollers that cannot be attacked or hurt in any way. Your only option is to run away from it, making perfectly clearing the cave your first go-around incredibly difficult and scarring. It's only upon reaching the final sublevel that you discover the Wraith's weakness through purple candy pop buds, purple Pikmin. The gravity-defying nature of their stomps anchors the Wraith into this dimension, allowing Olimar to sick his other Pikmin on it with no issue. Why a creature like this exists in Pikmin remains a hotly debated mystery within the Pikmin community to this day. My theories have shifted over the years, and currently the one I'm sitting on now is that they have something to do with the humans that are mysteriously nowhere in sight throughout any of the games. And so it was that Pikmin 2 gave me my first taste of playing a horror game, pursued by a monster you cannot hurt, a monster that defies any sense of rational explanation. But don't worry, Louie has us covered. The Water Wraith is indeed inedible, causing mass hysteria, as well as leg spasms and internal thunderings. And with that, we arrive to Louie, a key factor in this game's ending. Once you've paid off Hooktate Freight's debt, by which point you'll have several unobtained treasures still to go, Olimar and Louie get set to leave. With the treasure in tow, Olimar looks back at the Pikmin planet one more time, wishing a sad farewell to his Pikmin helpers, while the cutscene clearly and distinctly shows South America in view. Olimar then suddenly realizes that Louie is not on board the ship. Too little too late, this train stops for no captain. We are then shown a cute little credits sequence where Louie, supposedly baffled as to being left behind, wonders a photorealistic version of Pikmin 2's environs. That's right, the game is not done yet, and neither was I. The president, his mind on all the treasures still left to acquire, volunteers himself to go in Louie's absence, making rescuing Louie feel almost like a secondary mission at best. It's here that the game's final act begins. Not only is a new area unlocked, but you're given free rein to keep hunting for treasure, completing caves and clearing areas, all with the president by your side, complete with his own whistle noise. When switching to the president, he will exclaim, "Chacho!" For the longest time as a kid, I thought this was his name. In conversations with my friends, I would refer to him as Shacho. It was only upon learning some Japanese later in life that I realized Shacho is the Japanese word for president. Alright, Prez, keep your secrets. This man remained an enigma, and so too did the inner workings of his mind. Though, let's be real, profits are what he thinks about. Aside from his noises and color scheme, the president doesn't differ in quality in any way, keeping the experience seamless. By this point in the game, you may have noticed all of the areas giving off a feel of deja vu. In a moment of brilliance, Nintendo decided to have most of the areas in Pikmin 2 be slightly altered versions of the areas from Pikmin 1, something remarked upon by Olimar in-game, furthering speculation as to how fast exactly time is passing on the Pikmin planet. This level of continuity is something I've grown to miss in the series as time has gone on. It was a lot of fun for my theory-loving butt to go through these areas with a fine-tooth comb, spotting all of the changes since Pikmin 1's events. The final area of the game, the Wistful Wild, is a combination of the first and last areas of Pikmin 1, implying that they were relatively close together. It's here where you'll find some of the game's toughest caves, and where you'll find Louie. As a curious aside, he's located within Dream Den, a cave situated in the very same spot Olimar found his first ship part in Pikmin 1. This cave has the most treasures, and awaiting you at the end is the game's final boss, the Titan Dweevil. This futuristic-looking spider is defeated through careful use of your Pikmin types, as it can deploy every deadly element in the game. Strangely enough, Louie is found sitting atop its body. If you've gotten all other treasures in the game up to this point, Louie will be one of the last, adorned with the honorary title, King of Bugs. Reading the Piclopedia notes from Olimar here suggests there may have been more going on than meets the eye, aka Louie could have been controlling the Titan Dweevil. This begins a long-running saga of Louie doing seemingly villainous things for possibly innocent, possibly not, reasons. Like President, Louie 2 is an enigma, though one so vast it exceeds even the depths of our very own oceans. For the purposes of this video, I challenged myself to get a perfect pink flower ranking on every level of Pikmin 2's challenge mode on GameCube, as it's something I always wanted to do as a kid, but never could. Doing this unlocks a secret cutscene revealing that it was indeed Louie who instigated this entire game's plot. Not willingly, of course. The guy was just hungry and helped himself to the shipment of golden pick carrots. His mind is a mystery, but looking closer, it mostly revolves around food. Which, hey, same. Also, can I just say, I've always adored Pikmin 2's challenge mode. Similar ones would crop up again in 3 and 4. You're given a set assortment of Pikmin, and in 2's case, tasked with getting to the end of the set of caves. You can get treasure along the way, though the real challenge is getting the pink flower, a mark of beating the level without any Pikmin dying. This mode continues to push Pikmin 2 into its arcadey archetype. In any case, with all treasures in the game acquired, and Louie with them, you're awarded with the game's true ending. Olimar and the President blast off, the President yucking it up in the back seat as Olimar looks back and is greeted to a light show by the Pikmin, something they've never done for us since. Jerks. Pikmin 2 arrived at a perfect time, when fans were simply wanting more. Nintendo said sure, and presented a game with lots more, even if with it went some of the first game's challenge and atmosphere. These are purely minute gripes in the grander scope of Pikmin 2, and what it meant to me as a 10-year-old playing it for the first time. With Olimar and the crew headed home, this would be the last we would see and hear of these characters for quite some time, both in-game and, well, in real life.
We gave you DS, a new Game Boy, and new games to play on them. And now you say, you want a revolution? Well, we've got one.
Pikmin 2 met the world with praise and carried forward into the present day as the Pikmin game all about quantity, about excess. It was a simpler time, when the wait wasn't too long and the leap not too huge. For the longest time, I did not return to Pikmin 1, simply happy and content to chip away at Pikmin 2 a second time, a third time, to brush up against the challenge mode, so on and so forth. 2005 went by like this without much in the way of fanfare or change, though I had started at intermediate school, a sort of awkward bridge between elementary and middle school that was present in my school district, though not now. In 2006, life was about to change for me, in a big way. Up until that point, I had no one to share my love of Pikmin with. My family saw me play it plenty of times, but bless their hearts, I don't think they understood what was happening on screen. So I would get out my passions in other ways, drawing Pikmin, pretending Pikmin were hanging out in our backyard, and, of course, playing more Pikmin. Early into 2006, I made a new friend. For this video, we will refer to this friend as S. S was a classmate of mine, and the details behind our meeting are fuzzy at best. All I remember is chatting them up one day about GameCube games, in a time blissfully ignorant of the oncoming 7th console generation. Little had we known, Microsoft kicked things off only a few months earlier with the launch of the Xbox 360. S was a big fan of GameCube games, and to my joy, a big fan of Luigi's Mansion. I would go on to recommend that they play Pikmin 1 and 2, and with this tiny spark, we never looked back. Our friendship bloomed, pun intended, quickly and vibrantly, as friendships often do in your preteen years. S would come over to my house, and I, more frequently, would go over to S's house, having sleepovers, in which we would usually play through multiple GameCube games when we weren't chatting about school. This time of my life is reflected in both Pikmin 1 and 2, not just due to how often we would play them together, but in how much easier these times were compared to now. More than anything, when I think of the first two Pikmin games, this feeling of breezy, better times washes over me like a cold air on a hot summer's day. The Nintendo Wii would release on November 19th, 2006 for us in the States.
We're here about the launch of a fantastic new gaming system. A gaming system for you, for any of you out there.
I remember this time exceptionally well, and all the hype surrounding the Wii and its motion controls. A booth set up in our local GameStop had a demo version of Super Mario Galaxy to try out, and it was there that I played it and the Wii for the first time, my mind shattered over the ease of using the Wiimote and making Mario float around. I wanted a Wii for a long time. I wouldn't acquire one until a year later. For S, they got a hold of one shortly after launch, giving me an endless supply of totally valid excuses to keep going over to their house, not only to see S, but to experience the Nintendo Wii. I remember our excited conversations surrounding a hypothetical Pikmin 3 and what it would be like on the Wii. Well before Nintendo put out new play control versions of Pikmin, S and I vividly imagined aiming and tossing Pikmin with the Wiimote, a control scheme that works just as perfectly as you would think. Nintendo seemed to agree. Miyamoto-san would give an early stamp of approval to the Wii's control scheme for Pikmin, this coming hot off the heels of earlier handheld prototypes Nintendo had tested out, something Miyamoto-san revealed closer to 3's launch. This casual trivia drop would foreshadow a later game in the series. Meanwhile, new play control Pikmin, released for the Wii on March 9, 2009, made this radical motion-controlled idea into reality. Nintendo would follow it up with new play control Pikmin 2 on June 10, 2012. I've owned the first version for the longest time, but never got a chance to pick up the second one until just this year, 2024, through eBay. The copy is every bit as pristine as I was hoping, colored with that dark red Nintendo Selects cover art, and every inch of the box manual and disc adorned with Yamaguchi-san's clay artwork. I've run through it a few times on the very same Wii that I acquired well past a decade ago. In Christmas of 2007, I was gifted this most ultimate of gifts, my very own Nintendo Wii. As many a family would at the time, mine and I spent the Wii's opening moments creating Miis and enjoying Wii Sports. It's hard to think of many games, outside of maybe Mario's various N64 outings, that brought my family together, like Wii Sports. But of course, when the bowling died down and everyone was too tired to keep playing, I had my eyes on the prize and booted up Super Mario Galaxy, also a gift. With owning my own Nintendo Wii, and having had so many experiences playing on S's, our love of Nintendo and Nintendo games grew more and more. S was always something of a kindred spirit in this regard. No one I knew loved Nintendo games like them, or understood my love for these games like them. In early 2009, I was minding my own business in a digital art class I had chosen as an elective for my 8th grade year at middle school. This class just so happened to be the headquarters for the yearbook committee, who were brainstorming ways to make that year's yearbook fun and interesting. One of these ideas was to interview students by asking them simple questions and getting a photo of them with their answer. I was chosen for one of these, in which I was asked, "What's your favorite video game?" My expression and tone stone cold and deathly serious, I replied, Super Mario Galaxy. In what my memory feels like a couple months later, the yearbook was live as the school year was winding to a close before summer break. In homeroom one morning, I heard a group of guys laughing away at one of the questionnaires in their yearbooks. It was then that I heard my name, likely on purpose with me in earshot, and the condescending laughs as they sputtered out, "Super Mario Galaxy!" For my part, I felt bad for them that they didn't know the joys of that game, or maybe one or two did but just pretended not to. In any case, I can't imagine they had played Pikmin. The moment passed for them, and they resumed chatting excitedly about Gears of War, a real man's man game for happening dudes. One of the guys in this group would go on to be my best friend in high school, and eventually the best man at my wedding. It's funny how life works, and even funnier still how the dynamics of friendship in school work. They are made up of intricacies so layered that it would make the devs of Pikmin's gameplay blush. Despite being made fun of, I was proud of my answer, and naturally, S got where I was coming from. S and I would continue down the train of speculation for Pikmin 3 through our middle school years, wondering what it would be like, thinking surely Nintendo was going to release a third title for the Wii any day now. One of the first instances I could find through my research of this rampant speculation was a drawing I slapped together in an hour in MS Paint, a drawing I simply titled Pikmin 3, and emailed to S in the evening of October 9th, 2008. Finding this email was, in no uncertain terms, like an archaeologist plundering a tomb for historical artifacts. The email actually had nothing to do with Pikmin. It was about a paragraph's length of me despairing because I had to take a break from going to S's house, complete with all of the best colon/emojis a 2008 keyboard could throw out. This would have put the date of the drawing around my last year of middle school. By this point, it had been 4 years since Pikmin 2, so as one could imagine, the waiting was starting to feel worse. Look at the sheer despair contained in this drawing and tell me it's not the work of a broken teenager waiting aimlessly for more Pikmin. At this early stage, I was imagining a Pikmin 3 in which all 3 characters from Pikmin 2 returned. Special emphasis on Louie in this drawing, seen smiling. That's how you know this was delusional. Not much later, I changed this idea, imagining a Pikmin 3 where you would play as Olimar's grown-up children several years after the events of 2. Why they would be on the Pikmin planet, well, that was for Nintendo to figure out, not me.
So that a slow!
More years passed. With the passage of time, I entered the fragile 4 years of life known as high school, a time of heightened emotions and the emergence of new friendships. When I started it all off at East Central High School in St. Leon, Indiana in August of 2009, I felt the same sort of intimidation I felt when playing Pikmin 1 for the first time. Not too dissimilar from Pikmin 1, high school became all about managing my time as best I could, which was tricky to do seeing as I was hit with a weirdly sudden need to look cool and make lots of friends. This was the most social I had ever been in my life, and naturally that social battery plummeted downhill year after year from there on. With the plummeting of that, so too did my hopes for a Pikmin 3. S and I had some arguments here and there, the kind of petty high school arguments that would lead to a hot and cold, off-again, on-again friendship, but our love for Nintendo games never changed. In 2011, Nintendo would make the leap into the next generation by unveiling their newest console, the Wii U, at their E3 2011 press conference. Ever the showman, Nintendo of America President Reggie Fils-Aimé ran us through what to expect with this new console.
That we put that pronoun right in the name. So today, welcome to the world of Wii U. It's a system we will all enjoy together, but also one that's tailor-made for you.
As has been discussed everywhere online, the messaging was a little confusing.
until now, home console games had to occupy the TV screen in order to be played. But the new controller for Wii U with 6.2-inch screen built in means you won't need to give up your gameplay when someone else comes into the room and wants to watch a TV program.
The Wii U had a rough life ahead of it, but to this day I will go down swinging, defending it as an underrated console with fun games, even if it didn't receive all that many. This could be bias, as little did I know after its unveiling that it would be the home of Pikmin 3. I miss E3 press conferences. Nowadays, we have mishmashed, curated digital showcases that feel about as bland and corporate as you'd think. E3 was corporate as but it had a fun energy surrounding it that was hard to replicate. A week's slice of time where people passionate about video games and the wider industry could just enjoy being a part of the medium, cringy moments and all. As I would describe it to my parents, E3 was like the Super Bowl of gaming, a huge event in which I would have delicious food made, the lights dimmed or off, and sometimes a friend or two to watch with me. Things cannot and will not ever be like that again. E3 is actually truly dead as of the time of this writing, and it really is the end of an era. In E3 2012, Nintendo would finally drop the bomb. A bomb 8 years in the making. Shigeru Miyamoto would walk on stage, accompanied by translator and Japanese localization goat, Bill Trinen. As an aside, I really miss seeing these Nintendo personalities participating in announcements and Nintendo's little skits, also the relic of a bygone era. Miyamoto-san, smiling brightly, a conspicuous leaf poking out of his suit pocket, would do his best yellow Pikmin impression and light the fuse. And as for the following explosion, Pikmin 3.
I definitely want to create the next Pikmin on this new hardware. So allow me to introduce the next Pikmin to you. This is the new Pikmin. It has already been 10 years since we created the first Pikmin for Nintendo GameCube. Now Pikmin is a real-time action management game in which you command the Pikmin to perform a variety of tasks. And while the gameplay involves managing your swarm of 100 Pikmin, it is a game that shows the movements of each Pikmin individually. They're very cute and adorable.
It was real, it wasn't dead, and development had been entirely moved from the Wii to the Wii U. It's not an exaggeration when I say my eyes blasted out of my skull upon watching this trailer/gameplay overview for the first time. All the while, Trinen-san casually translating these mad facts about what I was seeing in a calm tone of voice.
If you look, the way that they carry each little object makes them seem more like real ants. Now let me show you a new Pikmin type. These are the new rock Pikmin. You can use them to break hard objects. And with Motion Plus technology, you can aim at specific targets, offering deeper strategy.
You have to understand, the last time we saw Pikmin was Pikmin 2 on the GameCube. Pikmin 3 looked vibrant and lush, essentially the modern-day realization of how 1 and 2 felt in their realism back in the early to mid-aughts. To this day, 2024, I still think Pikmin 3 is the most gorgeous-looking Pikmin game, and one of the best-looking games of all time. Immediately, from the get-go, the game's visuals made me feel at one with nature, the Pikmin looking more realistic than ever before, and all complemented by a cast of new characters and their rough draft forms, something Miyamoto-san was gleefully shady about.
Captain Olimar is not among them. The reason for that is a secret.
Pikmin 3 was set to be an early launch title for the Wii U, scheduled to release sometime during the console's debut in various regions in late 2012. Come a December Nintendo Direct, and this was not to be.
Pikmin 3 will be launching in Q2 of 2013.
The game was hit with a delay, now expected in the second quarter of 2013, and with it, part of my soul. In February of 2013, I would acquire my very own Wii U in preparation for this release. It would then be hit with another delay, revealed in April to instead be launching in August. With another delay, this meant Pikmin 3 would not be here before I graduated high school. After graduating in early June of 2013, afflicted at the time with a terrible post-surgery wound that made it hard to move around, I was despairing. It was already bad enough that I hadn't gotten to see my friends in the final month of school, but now Pikmin had to be put aside as well. I attended my graduation, said goodbye to my friends, and went back to recovering. Right around the time of graduating, E3 2013 kicked off, a welcome comfort in my sea of despair. For Nintendo's conference, specifically, I invited S to my place. This was one of the last times that we would hang out together in this odd post-graduation, pre-adult life period of time. As if to signify this strange point in life, Nintendo would also forego a traditional on-stage conference in favor of an E3-styled Nintendo Direct.
Today, we'd like to deliver directly to you updates on games that we will be showing at E3 2013.
This was the beginning of the end for Nintendo conferences, something I didn't realize when watching them on stage the previous year. Hosted by the late and great Satoru Iwata, E3 2013 was still plenty entertaining.
Thank you for watching.
Following their full direct, Nintendo would post a tangential Pikmin 3 related video in which Miyamoto-san overviewed the game, its mechanics, and what Pikmin means to everyone. It is here where Miyamoto-san would echo my own feelings about Pikmin, that it's a series anyone of any age can pick up and enjoy and get used to. Here was me, my 18-year-old going on 19-year-old arse, watching the equivalent of video game grandpa recounting a story about drawing Pikmin with a bunch of kids. In the story, these kids would immediately recognize Miyamoto-san's drawings.
One of the girls caught me and asked, "Why are you drawing a Pikmin?" And I asked if she knew Pikmin, and the girl said, "Yes."
The girl would go on to, I imagine in full earnest seriousness, tell Miyamoto-san, "You know, mister, there's a bad guy in the game called a Bulborb." Miyamoto-san thanked her for this information, simultaneously making all of our hearts melt. Rewatching this now in 2024 only smacks me across the face further with how well Pikmin resonates across age ranges. It's something that made Miyamoto-san feel good, something I would reckon made the entire team feel good, and something that I continuously keep in mind with a child on the way, not knowing anything about who they'll be or what they'll like. Sometimes it feels as if Pikmin's difficulty can throw up a wall between it and would-be players looking in from the outside. It's only when playing it, I feel, that its ease of use and oceanic depths can dawn upon someone. To make a long sentence short, Pikmin is more comfortable than it looks.
なんかごっついのもいるね。君も仲間？ありがとう。引っこ抜かれて戦って食べられてでも私たちいろんな能力働くピクミン Wii U Pikmin 3
Pikmin 3, like Pikmin 2 before it, would be an August game, at least for those of us in the United States, mirroring my August birth month yet again. Being the last territory to receive it, the anguish of waiting was simultaneously rough but easier as July spun onwards. I found myself thinking, well, I've waited 9 years, what's a couple more weeks? I would not keep this zen frame of mind when I actually had the game in my hands, though. In fact, my first play session with Pikmin 3 on launch day, August 4th, 2013, was a solid 3 hours, where normally I only play games for an hour at a time. Immediately, upon booting the game up, I felt a cathartic sense of relief.
It's done. Yes, Mr. Frodo. It's over now.
One I would not feel again until starting up Pikmin 4 on July 21st, 2023. Pikmin 3 opens with an entirely new setup and completely new characters. This time around, you play as 3 captains from a planet called Kopai, a planet struggling with the food crisis. They determine that they must send this intrepid team out to a planet rich in food, which leads them to the Pikmin planet, which gains its own name in this game for the first time in the series, PNF 404, a name thought up by the Kopaites. The team consists of Charlie, a macho mustachioed captain, Alf, a plucky, intelligent engineer, and Brittany, a botanist and arguably one of the best characters in Pikmin, Do Not At Me.
It's Brittany, bitch.
Of course, I didn't feel this way right away. At first, my immediate thought was, where is Olimar? who are these people? When, in conjunction with the first two games, does this take place? Ironically enough, I would find myself confronted with the very same thoughts when playing Pikmin 4. Naturally, on their way into PNF 404, something goes wrong. You can't see it here, but I'm using air quotes around the word something. We'll get to this. Pikmin 3's starting hours has you reuniting the three characters with the help of the Pikmin, whom I can only presume are lured in by these people because they have similar spacesuits and whistles as Olimar and Louie. Once the band is back together, their mission commences. Not only must they acquire fruit to convert to edible juice for their people back home, they must also hunt down their cosmic drive key, a vital component of their ship that will allow them to return. 3 games in, you may get the sneaking suspicion that the Pikmin planet really likes crashing ships. We'll get to this. It's through these dual missions that Pikmin 3 reveals its hand. The core game pacing is a fruit-blended mix of Pikmin 1 and 2, but with heavy emphasis on Pikmin 1. That's right, the time limit from the first game is back, but in a much less stressful form than before. In Pikmin 3, your characters, like me, need to eat. This game, similar to Pikmin 2 in a sense, is about putting food on the table. The food the Kopai team can use all take the form of earth fruits, and by collecting these, you gain fruit juice. At the end of each day, 1 bottle of fruit juice is fed to the team, ensuring their survival.
Wow, that is delicious. Finally, some food.
This makes fruit simultaneously this game's form of treasure, as well as your means of extending the time limit. Run out of juice and you get a game over. Unlike Pikmin 1, this game over is more forgiving, allowing the player to select a previous day to restart from, in the hopes of switching things up. The good news is there's plenty of fruit to go around, so much so that it made me want to hop over to my local jungle gyms and try eating them all in real life. It's hard to run low on juice, as most days you'll be picking up fruits as you go, giving you ample time to do what you need to do. In Nintendo's Ask the Developer, the team compared Pikmin 3 in a fashion more similar to Pikmin 1's deeper challenge, in regards to people falling into Pikmin 1 or Pikmin 2 camps. The time limit streamlines the gameplay of Pikmin 3, making it feel less bloated than 2 while also maintaining that moderate challenge 1 had, complete with modern sensibilities and buttery smooth gameplay. With all of this being said, I feel it's because of this that Pikmin 3, of all 4 mainline Pikmin games, has the best pacing. You can take that to the bank. With 3's step back into 1's more linear, challenging waters, you're going to need tools to help give you an edge. Enter the Wii U gamepad, which serves as a counterpart to the Kopai's own in-game Cope pads. You see, Pikmin 3 offers the player a handful of different control schemes, with 2 main options being immediately apparent. You can either A, play with the Wii U gamepad, or B, play with the Wii Remote and Nunchuck, a la New Play Control Pikmin. There's also option C, the Wii U Pro Controller, which feels like the classic GCN way to play. I didn't choose this, so I guess I'm not a pro. Now, while option B is tempting for its sublime motion aiming, I stand here today to argue to you, the viewer, that option A is actually incredibly rewarding, and to date, my favorite way to play Pikmin 3. It's funny looking back on it now, but the Wii U's entire setup was not too dissimilar to what Nintendo was going for with the Switch, albeit far more limited in scope. With the Wii U, most games offered 2 different setups, one of which was to play the games on your TV, Wii U gamepad in hand, and use the pad as an additional heads-up display for in-game information, something which in itself is also not dissimilar from the Nintendo DS. This feature, while often a novelty, still managed to add additional immersion to games in a way I couldn't really find elsewhere. Notable standout is Zombie U's fantastic rummage through your inventory system, in which you had to look through your gamepad as your inventory without the game paused, allowing zombies to sneak up on you if you weren't being careful. People may give Nintendo a hard time for the Wii U's failings, but a lot of the stuff it did was just unique and fun, if a bit gimmicky. We won't speak ill of the dead here. The other method of play was to switch exclusively to the gamepad, disabling your view on the TV and condensing it into the gamepad's display to the best of its ability. Doing this required the player to be close enough to the Wii U for it to work, but it allowed my own family the novel ability to watch TV while I console gamed on the couch with no issue. As I said, a very limited Nintendo Switch. 99% of my first playthrough of Pikmin 3 would consist of the first method, black Wii U gamepad at the ready while my eyes were glued to the TV screen. In Pikmin 3, the gamepad's functionality as a HUD takes the form of a live map of the area you're in. For a series all about being a Dandori badass, this map is nothing short of a godsend. Playing any other way would mean having to pull the map up separately. With the gamepad, I could easily direct the characters' places while keeping tabs on whatever was happening somewhere else. One of the game's new mechanics, Go Here, has you picking a spot on the map for a captain to go to. They'll automatically walk there while you control the other captains, instantly certifying itself as one of my favorite Pikmin mechanics, one I wish they used in 2, and one they brought back in 4. It becomes especially rewarding when you realize you can use the Wii U stylus to scroll the map around. Doing so will not only pause any action in-game, but display wherever you're viewing in an aerial bird's eye view on the TV screen. This, effectively, turns the player into a psychic. By using this, you can chart out where fruits are in advance, make note of enemies, or just see what's going on at any given time. Playing this way felt a little like cheating, but it only offered the ability of foresight. My actual play skill when reaching said areas would vary wildly. This mechanic of simultaneously playing the game and monitoring the map made for one of the most unique Pikmin experiences I've ever had. An experience you can only have playing this particular Pikmin game in this particular way on this particular console from over a decade ago. Gameplay-wise, there isn't too much changed here outside of the new Wii U control scheme. You still give Pikmin things to do, most often by throwing them, though the Swarm mechanic from 1 and 2 was dropped in favor of the Charge command, which sends every Pikmin currently in your squad charging headfirst at whatever you have targeted, enemy or object. I did find myself missing the Swarm command a lot in this game, though it did nothing to detract from my enjoyment. The other main shake-up to the formula is in the form of our 2 new Pikmin types for this entry, Rock Pikmin and Winged Pikmin, the latter of which I still refer to as Pink Pikmin, purely because it feels most natural to say. Rock Pikmin have a lot of utility, and at first blush, you may think they would be similar to Purple Pikmin with their heft and stomps. Unlike their gravity warping cousins, Rock Pikmin instead are blessed with a hard exterior, or in other words, they're edgy. Any enemy attacks that comprise stomps or smashing won't work on these Pikmin. As someone who was once a young child attempting to stomp on rocks to see what would happen, believe me, I've tried.
Don't do that again, that was big.
These Pikmin can also break through glass walls, a unique type of barrier that suddenly seems to have sprung up throughout the Pikmin planet with the arrival of these stone-cold friends. Because they're so bulky, Rock Pikmin do not stick to enemies when thrown like other Pikmin, instead bouncing off of them with a resounding thud before they go into their attack animations, the bouncing never ceasing. Winged Pikmin are the opposite end of the spectrum. Where Rock Pikmin are burly and defensive, Winged Pikmin are light, airy, and flexible. Throwing them at enemies allows them to fly straight to hard-to-reach weak points, most notably eyeballs. As with Rock Pikmin, they have their own type-specific obstacles and objects to deal with. Since they're airborne, they can also travel over water with no issue, giving your army of blue Pikmin some extra buds to hang out with, though, of course, they cannot retrieve anything underwater. Like white Pikmin before them, Winged Pikmin are also relatively weaker. Speaking of, you may be wondering where in the world our purple and white Pikmin went this go-around. As it turns out, they are tucked away in specific stages of the game's challenge mode, something I was sad to learn my first time through, though I am happy Nintendo even included them at all. They're a little rough around the edges compared to 2, particularly the purple Pikmin, but they get the job done and, as mentioned prior, white Pikmin are still certifiably goated. With the addition of new Pikmin types, one of the first things you'll notice is that the onion is different this go-round. While 1 and 2 maintain the same appearance, 3's onions are more biomechanical looking, and upon getting new Pikmin colors, they merge together into one giant hub onion. The onions, like the Pikmin themselves, are evolving over time. The more futuristic appearance of them in 3 lends credence to the idea that this is the farthest game in the series' timeline, though, as I keep repeatedly saying, that's a story for another time. In between days for Pikmin 3, the Copites will hang out in their ship, the SS Drake, before deciding where to land each morning. While on the ship, you can initiate a chat between the 3 captains and see how they're feeling that particular day, turning the player into a fly on the wall. The Picklepedia from 2 didn't come back for 3, something that tore my heart asunder when I first played. Nintendo seemed to have got the memo, as they brought one in for the 3 Deluxe re-release on Switch, each creature getting notes from Alf, Brittany, Charlie, and, later on, Olimar and Louie included. We'll get to them. What is consistent between both versions is Brittany's fruit file, a meticulously detailed log of every fruit you collect, complete with insights into the mind of Brittany, again, one of the best around in all of Pikmin. On normal difficulty, Pikmin 3 has a total of 98 in-game days worth of fruit juice to keep you going. Thanks Wikipedia for this hyper helpful information. Which means, at most, you can play Pikmin 3 for 99 in-game days, a stark contrast to Pikmin 2's nebulous and infamous "it will end when it will end" approach. And yes, I didn't stutter, normal difficulty. Pikmin 3 introduced the series first by way of difficulty modes, albeit only in the deluxe version. Those who played the original on Wii U were pitted against the baseline difficulty. The hardest mode, Ultra Spicy, adds some limiters to the mechanics, reducing the number of Pikmin you can have out and the juice you can collect. I've yet to try this mode for myself, but I think I just might sometime down the line when I'm jonesing for some Pikmin 3 back into my life. The many layers of Pikmin 3's story, like an onion, begin to unfold as you reach the later stage bosses. This starts with the Scornet Maestro, a boss intended to teach the player the joys of fighting with winged Pikmin. You discover this boss through signals detected after retrieving, of all things, a 2000s flip phone, leading our 3 captains to discover everyone's favorite Chaos Gremlin, Louie. You may be wondering why Louie is here on PNF 404 yet again. In the original Wii U version of the game, players would discover secret files that formed a code and would play a pre-recorded video of Olimar and Louie on another expedition when entering this code into a website. Yes, our 2 former protagonists have their noses to the grindstone once again, and it's through these files, replaced by Olimar's log in Pikmin 3 Deluxe, that you discover Olimar does not get any rest, nor any mercy from his employer. It's around this point in the series that Olimar appears to undergo something of a shift in his personality, obsessing more over the Pikmin planet, and remarking repeatedly how his family never sees him. He even, at one point, jokingly or not, worries about forgetting his address. All of this will become hyper important when we reach Pikmin 4, though, for now, I'll point your attention to the fact that Olimar, in all of 3's secret logs, reminds us that this is his 3rd visit to the planet. As for Louie, he gets captured by the Scornet, and through your efforts, the Copites save him and bring him back to their ship. The next day, however, they discover they've been had, bamboozled, backstabbed, right in the fruit. Louie made off with nearly all of their juice supply, meaning he has essentially put you near game over and changed your somewhat leisurely pace to an urgent mission of hide and seek. You may not see it, but somewhere off screen, Louie's list of crimes grows. In the cutscene displaying his act of theft, he runs off screen and manages to blow up a wall to proceed further into the Garden of Hope, one of the areas of the game, not to be confused with one's Forest of Hope. Back in my early days, my second video on this channel, in fact, I postulated the idea that Louie gained some sort of superpowers to blow this wall up, via way of spiritual possession. It's a whole thing. Yada yada davogado, yada yada das reviews, yada yada yokai. This was the popular running theory at the time, and to this day, I've still not figured out how Louie blows up this wall. Chad Louie doesn't care about our theories though. Walls cannot stop him, and in present day, the fandom at large has accepted that Louie can just do things. As you chase him into the furthest reaches of the area, you encounter a deadly boss known as the Quaggled Myreclops. Louie being Louie, he gets captured by yet another giant creature, and it's up to you to bring down the Myreclops, a task that goes much smoother if you have blue Pikmin to spare. After retrieving Louie yet another time, the Copites tie him up to make sure he doesn't try anything. He points them to the final area of the game, the Formidable Oak, revealing Olimar's last known location. Upon going here, Pikmin 3 goes from a fun adventure story to an H.P. Lovecraft-style cosmic horror. All pretenses of silly antics are dropped in favor of weirding the player out with what's about to unfold. As it turns out, Olimar was captured by a mysterious lifeform that seems bent on keeping him captive at all costs. This lifeform looks a little strange at first, stroking Olimar's helmet as if it were a mother protecting a child. Upon seeing the captains, it tries to protect Olimar inside a gold bubble. But the trio manages to retrieve him and heads into the Termite Mound Hollow, unconscious Olimar in tow. From here, the lifeform gets serious. Horrifying music begins to play, and you, the player, find yourself being hunted by the being, who now looks incredibly similar to the Gulix boss from Pikmin 1. As you may imagine, when I first played this ending sequence at the just reached age of 19, my brain was reeling. Before you could even blink, the connections were already starting to form between this bizarre enemy and other bizarre enemies of Pikmin games past. The ending chase sequence is a stressful and horrifying one on first playthrough. The creature couldn't care less about your 3 playable characters, honing in on whichever group you've tasked with carrying Olimar. Brittany starts as the de facto leader of this squad, and stays this assuming you keep her alive, leaving Alf and Charlie as your designated route clearers and puzzle solvers while she keeps the lifeform busy. In this way, the sequence doubles as both a chase and a careful distraction, luring the lifeform into however many loops you need, maintaining your distance, and clearing the way further through the tunnels with the other 2 captains. This forces the player, if they've not learned yet this far into the game, to access their inner Dandori and skillfully coordinate 3 characters at the same time. Eat your heart out, The World Ends With You, 2007. Thankfully, the captain on Olimar duty will warn when the lifeform is getting close to them, so you had better hope you and your Pikmin weren't in the middle of something when you need to quickly switch over. Throughout the tunnels are enemies of varying threat levels, though upon defeating them, they dissolve into a shower of golden goop. It's never discussed, but the implication here is that the lifeform manifested these enemies as mere illusions. How and why it does this is left up to the player's imagination, as are most other things when it comes to this enemy. Once you've successfully escorted Olimar out of the tunnels, you'll find yourself right near the Copite ship in a suspiciously large circular arena, adorned with a pattern very reminiscent of the Smoky Prog's resting place. That's right, it's time for the final boss. After playing all 4 of these games, I can safely say, without hesitation, that there is no boss in the series, mechanically or thematically, like the final boss of Pikmin 3. Those aforementioned connections my brain was forming to past series bosses were all but downright confirmed with the reveal of its name, the Plasm Wraith. The Wraith works on a system of diminishing size. It has access to every dangerous element in the game, making the fight a split between dishing out damage and keeping your Pikmin from perishing to their status effects. The Wraith starts out large, but as your Pikmin attack it, more and more of its pieces dissipate so that when it reforms itself, it's smaller than it was before. If, like me, you don't have time at the end of the day to fight an entire boss after carrying Olimar through the area, you don't have to worry. The Wraith will be hanging out in the arena the next day, coffee presumably at the ready, waiting for you to make the first move. Being a Wraith is exhausting work. As with everything mind-bendingly horrifying in Pikmin, the defeat of the Wraith and subsequent ending are understated in comparison to the horrors you just experienced. Olimar, thankful to the Copites for saving him from his captor, hitches a ride aboard the SS Drake. The group leave the planet, Louie not in tow, again.
You can't keep getting away with this! He can't keep getting away with it!
With an angry Plasm Wraith waving at them, seemingly completely fine after the co-pipe beatdown. The ending narration you receive during this bit changes depending on how much fruit you collected over the course of the experience. Gather every fruit, and you're rewarded with a tiny nugget, a hint practically built for channels such as mine, in which the narrator reveals the co-pites crashing at the start of the game may have not been an accident, but rather something intentional or caused by something else with the express purpose of getting the co-pites on the planet. With all of this in mind, you can tell something's not quite right with this planet, the weird creatures, or the constant shipwrecks that occur here. The ending of the game also gives you a glimpse at another ship landing in the distance, which the Pikmin go investigate. For a long time between the game's initial Wii U launch and the launch of Pikmin 3 Deluxe on October 30th, 2020, the meaning of this cutscene was a total mystery. It's only with Deluxe that Nintendo worked in 2 playable side stories for our favorite shipcrasher, Captain Olimar's assignment, which takes place before the events of the game, and Olimar's comeback, which takes place after the ending, and is what this exact cutscene is referencing. These 2 modes are welcome additions, adding some much-needed context to the story, namely as to why Olimar and Louie are futzing about the planet once again. For those who didn't watch my Lingering Mysteries video, the majority of its runtime is me covering the questions Deluxe didn't answer, as well as the additional questions it sets up, only for Pikmin 4 to not answer either. As commenter Barely Here 7200 put it, well, considering Pikmin 4 may or may not have just retconned the entire series, I doubt we're ever gonna get answers to any of these. To which I wholeheartedly agree. I don't think we will get answers. Maybe that's for the best though. I don't know, man. I'm just some guy. But as some guy with a passion for Pikmin, what I can tell you is that Pikmin 3 took all of my preconceived notions of what a modern Pikmin game would be like and exceeded them in every regard. To this day, as I type out this very sentence, I struggle to determine whether it or Pikmin 4 are my absolute favorite Pikmin game. There's just something about 3, the way it presents its story in controlled bursts, the tighter, more concentrated level design and pacing, and the fact that it's easily the best looking Pikmin game of all makes it a game I repeatedly look back on fondly and repeatedly miss playing. Between it and 4, both are quintessential examples of the games that I feel represent what Pikmin is all about. Pikmin 3 arrived at a time in my life where nearly every single thing was changing. My health, my entrance into adulthood, the parting of ways with all of my high school friends, and the start of a very complex, very troubled relationship. Through all of these turbulent happenings, and all of the dreadful emotions they brought with them, Pikmin 3 was like a shining beacon of light, keeping me from losing my way, giving me something to remind myself that things weren't all bad. Despite it taking 9 years to happen, well over half of my time attending school, Pikmin 3 arrived with, no exaggeration, at the time when I needed it the most. Little had I known then that Pikmin 4 would do no such thing, and in fact would lead me to question its very existence at every turn. About 1 month after I had finished Pikmin 3 and had excitedly ranted about the ending while on an impromptu visit to S's new house, my brain began to quickly crowd with several ideas. These ideas, otherwise known as theories, would become so plentiful, so agonizingly ever-present in my mind that I had to have some sort of outlet to get them out, to tell people about them. With this in mind, and with the assistance of my recently gifted Alienware P01E laptop, I would go commence my plans and create VGTI, the channel you are presently viewing. I knew from the get-go that I wanted VGTI to be a theory channel. It's in the name after all, Video Game Theory Investigation. I also knew from the get-go that Pikmin would be my first topic. It would be but a short time later that I would delve into other games, at which point my channel would become well known solely for 3 things: Pikmin, Half-Life, and Undertale. The channel was created on October 2nd, 2013, and my first video, rather than being my own theory, was a retelling of another theory put forward by Davogado, as well as Daz Reviews. With discussing this theory, I thought I could more easily transition into the channel, giving my own thoughts on the theory and adding what I could think of to the discussion. Later Pikmin videos would be my own theories, and still, to this day, there are some I've not made videos on, nor might I ever. It was an exciting time to be a theory YouTuber. Pikmin 3 was only 2 months old, the mystery of the Plasm Wraith was burning ever brightly, and I had a file cabinet's worth of things to discuss.
Anyways guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Feel free to leave a comment, tell me what you think, subscribe, like the video, all that jazz.
I was very inexperienced at being on YouTube, doing my best to grow the channel in whatever ways I could think of, in the hopes that I would build an audience and perhaps someday do this for a living. This was when I was at my most consistent, uploading on the regular, which is thanks to not having a job at this point in my life. The analytics for the channel reflect this, having a steady rise over those first 2 years, peaking with the cultural touchstone that was Undertale in 2015 to 16, love you Undertale, and then leveling out once I took my 3-year departure from the channel, sort of in limbo ever since. Upon returning to YouTube after those 3 years, I've come to treat the channel as something of a side project, as one does when life gets too busy to do anything more. It's perhaps because of this, among other reasons, that I've decided to hunker down and put together a bigger, more in-depth video of this nature, a kind of deep dive I've never done before. Starting on YouTube was the first time I had ever really put myself out there, publicly, on the internet, at least as a creator. At the time, maybe due to the excitement surrounding Pikmin 3, I felt more ready than ever to do that, but no amount of dandori could prepare me for what was to come next, adult life. And so it followed in 2014 when I would get my first job, and beyond that, my second. Therein, I would take on the role of a humble Pikmin, carrying things around, putting things places, and just generally existing, only without the cool space captain to guide me. As you might surmise, I hated every second of these jobs. In retrospect, it would take me many years to find a job I actively didn't hate. Both of these first jobs were juggled with trying to grow my YouTube channel, as well as my first forays into game development, a dream I long held on to. Suddenly, like a spotty bullbear wandering into your area without warning and gobbling up your Pikmin, my then-girlfriend moved out of state, throwing life into brief chaos. I, with all the naivete of a 20-year-old man, unsure of what his future would hold, decided to tag along. Hendersonville, North Carolina was an alright place overall, but before long, I found myself missing home. In the months leading up to the move down south, I had said my goodbyes to all of my favorite people and places from my childhood, unsure of when I would be back. Going back briefly for my birthday cemented the fact in my mind that I wanted to be back home, that I missed it too much to be gone, at least at that point in my life. No shade to Hendersonville, you guys have an annual Apple Festival, which is easily one of the top 10 local attractions I've heard of anywhere, ever. The prior year of living in North Carolina, 2015, I had put out only a handful of videos, one being a set of ideas for what a Pikmin 4 would be like, echoing the very speculative debates S and I would hold not long ago for Pikmin 3. This video in particular was a response to Miyamoto-san's words around this time. In their toughest times between the end of the Wii U's life and the non-announced rumor whispering of the Switch on the horizon, Miyamoto-san was asked about Pikmin 4 in an interview by Eurogamer on July of 2015, to which he famously replied, "It's actually very close to completion. Pikmin teams are always working on the next one. We can confirm that Pikmin 4 is in development, but that is all we can confirm at present." Shortly thereafter, Pikmin fans exploded. This statement also made Pikmin 4's conspicuous absence each following year that much harder to stomach. After a few years of nothing, when asked where Pikmin 4 was, fans would bitterly, sarcastically reply, "Oh, don't worry, it's very close to completion." The reply shot out like a throwing knife to the heart, said hypothetical fans lashing out in their anguish. And so, with a yearning for home in my gut, I moved back to Indiana in late 2015, parting ways with my ex. Around this time, older subscribers of this channel may remember my video production increased twofold here. I was putting out a lot of theories at the time, particularly surrounding Undertale, doing more with my now defunct Let's Play and Analyze channel, and cobbling together my also now defunct vlogging channel, in which one of the first videos uploaded would see me visiting S and documenting my experience. I was trying to warm up to being on camera instead of being a disembodied voice, something reflected in my We Hit 1000 video. Since you're this far in the video you're viewing right now, you know as well as I do that this didn't stick. In fact, it stuck about as well as throwing Pikmin at a Fulix. Later on, in early 2016, I would be hit with some mistaken regrets, leading to a severe, dark bout of depression. I overviewed this in some vagueness in my return video, Where Have I Been? You see, 2016 to 2017 were arguably the lowest points of my life. I was happy to be back home, don't get me wrong, but met with an intense sadness that ate away at me every hour of every day. Finding myself feeling this way, I knew I couldn't keep making VGTI videos like that, so I simply stopped, with no real intention of returning. Later on in 2016, I would move to Beaufort, South Carolina, purely to stay close to my family, which only encouraged me to stay pent up, as the town and state weren't really my speed. Once again, no shade intended, they have pretty beaches and a coffee shop with coffee ice cubes, easily one of the top 10 coffee ideas I've heard of anywhere, ever. Throughout all of these awful emotions, I had met the person who would go on to be my girlfriend and eventually my wife. We kept in constant contact throughout these years, states apart, which is more than I can say for Nintendo about Pikmin 4. When I stated earlier that Pikmin 4 would not replicate Pikmin 3's blessed arrival timing, this point in time is what I meant. I can look back and imagine what it would have been like, getting Pikmin 4 in those 2 dark years, being able to immerse myself in it for comfort, though I know if it had come out then, it wouldn't be the same Pikmin 4 we have today. 2016 was punctuated by leaving my then most serious relationship, having my parents' only remaining dog pass away, moving away from my hometown after just returning to it, and discovering that S was actually a tremendously awful person. We haven't seen each other since then. All of this, wrapped up into one total hell of a year, affected me on a profoundly deep level. That year, I was as ultra bitter as bitter gets, and by the end of it, I stopped contacting people, stopped making any sort of effort, banking on false hopes as the year ended with the cherry on top that was my medical problems from 2013 returning, a terrifying snap back to reality. It's hard for me to even type these things out, as it was genuinely the worst point of my entire life, and it's a period of time that I don't think I've fully come back to normal from out the other end. Something that still haunts my daily interactions with people, tinges them with a weirdness I never really experienced pre-2016.
Nintendo Switch has inherited DNA from each of the many hardware systems Nintendo has released to date. The Nintendo Entertainment System included 2 controllers in the base system. Game Boy made it possible to bring video games out of the home. Super NES added the X and Y buttons and the L and R buttons to enhance the fun. Nintendo 64 offered the world's first analog control stick, and it introduced a rumbling controller with the development of the Rumble Pack. We put a handle on Nintendo GameCube so it could be carried around. Even at that time, we were considering a home game system that you could take with you, but it seems we were a little too soon. Nintendo DS added a touchscreen. With the Wii Remote, motion control became possible. And the Wii U gamepad enabled you to play games off the TV. And now, Nintendo Switch has inherited all of Nintendo's entertainment DNA, and we have packed each and every one of these features into the system.
2017 wasn't much better, but 2016 had set a pretty low bar to begin with. The important thing for this year was the announcement and eventual launch of the Nintendo Switch, a brand new era for Nintendo, complete with its own highs and lows. For me, I knew a new console meant that wherever Pikmin 4 was, it was going to be for the Switch. It just had to be, right? This kept my hopes high for each following year as Nintendo made their way, leisurely, through all of their biggest IPs. 2017 would also see the release of Hey! Pikmin for the Nintendo 3DS line of systems, a game teased the prior year before getting a showing in that April's Nintendo Direct.
One fateful trip through the stars, Captain Olimar lost control of the SS Dolphin II and crash-landed on a new planet inhabited by Pikmin.
My excitement for Hey Pikmin was minimal at best. On the one hand, I was happy Nintendo was giving us any kind of Pikmin entertainment to begin with, though all of this was viewed in the lens of wanting Pikmin 4, which, to be fair to Hey Pikmin, was an unreasonable standard to throw at its feet. Hey Pikmin is more of a spin-off to the main games, developed by a different studio, Arzest, and giving players a 2D-styled Pikmin game, complete with its own unique mechanics. I purchased the game upon release on July 28, 2017, but wasn't able to play it until the COVID-19 pandemic. Had 2017 been a lighter year for games, this glacial stalling may not have happened, but, well...
Oh, that's not so much. So?
I've not talked extensively about Hey Pikmin outside of this video, in which I wrestle with the idea of what the planet in this game actually is, since it's treated as separate from the one we see in the main games. Having played it all the way through now, though, it gets a solid golf clap from me. The game is fun for what it is. It may not scratch the particular itch that the mainline Pikmin games do, but it's one of the more fun 3DS games I've played, and I look back on it fondly for the entertainment it provided during such a harrowing historical event. It also introduced the concept of Sparklium, something that would come up again in the next installment of the series. In 2018, I began dating my now wife. Rather than do normal first date type of things, we cranked the difficulty slider to max and went to Japan that same year for 8 days, a vacation mentioned in my return video. After being strong friends for 2 whole years beforehand, an intimidating trip like that rolled right off of us, and ultimately only brought us closer together. Being the homeland of nearly all things from my childhood and beyond, Japan was as cool as I thought it would be, even if our trip was only contained within the Tokyo area. Life was feeling a lot better by this point, and afterwards, I would finally set aside this dark period and, once again, move back up north to my old stomping grounds to be with my girlfriend. The move took place in early 2019. Pikmin 4 a mere hypothetical still, though in early 2019, I was busy enjoying Kingdom Hearts 3, a game where I would have the exact same feeling playing it as I did Pikmin 4 a few years later. That feeling being, how is this game real? Later in 2019, I would return to my YouTube channel, an endeavor that's been off and on over the past few years. It's become one of those things I have to be able to make time for, and now even the very format is changing, a topic for a later video. With 2020's arrival came the arrival of the pandemic, something that has, in retrospect, felt like a huge turning point in society at large, bringing everyone's core values to the forefront in a way nothing ever really has. For my girlfriend and I, we hunkered down in our little apartment, making sure to pass the time with the recently released Animal Crossing New Horizons. It had been 5 years since Miyamoto-san had stated Pikmin 4 was close to completion, though he did pop up in both 2016 and 17 to assure the game was still being worked on. I don't think it was until 2021 or 2022 when my hopes for the game's existence truly and utterly vanished, the Switch already much farther along in its lifespan. Nintendo would announce a Nintendo Direct for September 13, 2022. You must understand, with the timing of this Direct, I had just turned 28 years old, engaged for 1 year, a wedding on the way that November. My most recent memories of mainline Pikmin were from being fresh out of high school. Life had only gotten harder, and I don't know, I guess by then I had just grown more cynical about the whole thing. In the words of one Sir Spike Spiegel, whatever happens, happens. That mentality dropped completely upon Pikmin 4's announcement trailer during said Nintendo Direct. News reports from that day can't quite agree on all of the details, but for what they can agree on, there was shouting, there were mild tears, and my 4 cats were all understandably concerned. The trailer wasn't even much, the tiniest morsel of footage to send longtime Pikmin fans straight to the hospital. A screenshot of gameplay, the announcement of the Dandori playstyle, and the game being made in Unreal Engine, a series first. I mean it when I say I don't think I'll ever forget the exact sensation of hearing that good morning trumpet noise to the visuals of the admittedly simple Pikmin 4 logo unveiling on screen. Miyamoto-san, sporting official Pikmin 4 merch, was clearly ecstatic to be announcing this. You could feel the pure, unadulterated joy radiating from this man. Pikmin may not have reached Mario, but you'd be hard-pressed to find more passionate fans. I mean, just look at how long this video is. Nintendo would keep us waiting with bated breath for more information, before re-emerging again, fittingly, in the season of love, February. For their Nintendo Direct of February 8th, 2023, Nintendo would show up to us in the hallway after school, blush resplendent, a homemade chocolate hidden behind their back, clutched in hand. Nintendo would be like, "It's not like this was hard to make, just take it." Tearing apart the wrapper, the chocolate contained the best early Valentine's Day gift someone could ask for. A release date, July 21st, 2023, a simultaneous worldwide launch. We would be rewarded further still with a proper trailer. This trailer, our first look at the actual gameplay, ended up being a fountain of information. Through it, we found out about Ice Pikmin, the space puppy helper Ochi, a hint at caves coming back as a mechanic, and even a hint at something happening at night. With the trailer dropped and a release date so tantalizingly close, I would upload my final video to VGTI before the game's launch, and the final video before, well, this video. This video would come over several things in the trailer, and all of my theories presented ended up being wrong. As if sensing my upload timing, Nintendo would go on to do a plot summary trailer for the game, and not long thereafter, a more detailed look at the game during their June 21st, 2023 Direct, right around when E3 would have been, had it not been brought out to pasture. This trailer confirmed the existence of Night Mode, also a series first, as well as the new Glow Pikmin, Dandori Battle Mode, and a look at caves. I didn't care that my video ended up being a toss, however. I was on cloud 9, getting Pikmin 4 news left and right. This is all I ever wanted, and the game was only 1 month away. Nintendo dared to let us glimpse this thing in just enough detail as to not stray too deep. Just before launch, the Ask the Developer series of interviews would come out for fans to read, which I will once again reference in this upcoming segment. These interviews revealed that the director of Pikmin 4 would be Yuji Kondo in collaboration with Tetsushi Tsunoda. Kondo-san worked on all previous Pikmin titles, going on to assist as director alongside longtime series director Hino-san in Pikmin 3 specifically. The reins, like the time span between Pikmin 3 and 4, passed on. These interviews would also set the stage pre-release for the style Nintendo was going for this time around in Pikmin, i.e. a blend of all Pikmin games that came before it. The wait almost over, I couldn't contain myself. Where once my wrist was bare, a blank canvas even, did it now fall upon the skills of my local tattoo artist to leave a permanent mark of a series I hold so dear. Tattoos, in general, were a new concept for me as of the end of 2022. I got my first at that time, soon after my wedding, spurred on by general curiosity and finding myself unable to stop after the first. By the time I acquired my Pikmin tattoo on July 5th, 2023, it would be my 5th. Summed up, the idea was to do a wraparound with the foliage of the Pikmin 1 logo, complete with the original Pikmin poking out of it. In the future, I'd find it nice to add the other Pikmin types in as well, maybe extend the foliage further up my hand or arm. Either way, this felt like the perfect end-off to a 10-year wait. And then, in what felt like an instant, Pikmin 4 was in my hands, and I can happily preface this segment by stating Pikmin 4 is a goated game, a god-tier experience, and the 8th known wonder of this world. Like Pikmin 1 before it, I was a different person pre and post-game, as Nintendo would go on to show me, lay to rest my silly fears, that yes, Pikmin's still got the magic.
持ち帰っちゃおうかな。よいしょ。これもいただき。あれ、一匹足りない？お宝ゲット。
ピクミン4体験版配信中。
Pikmin 4 is what I would call an audacious game. At every turn, every hour of play, this game would surprise me in some way, shape, or form. And that's even with taking the immediate opportunity to read every last letter of the Ask the Developer interviews. As said before, my takeaway from reading them was that Pikmin 4 would be a mixture of everything up till now. This came up near immediately with the team discussing the split of if people are more into the mechanics of Pikmin 1 or 2, and how there's rarely an in-between. 3, as mentioned here, was more of a return to form of the first game's style. With 4, the team wanted to appeal to fans of both gameplay varieties, leading to the game we have now, a game with the vast ocean of spoils to enjoy, the unlimited days, caves, and collectibles of Pikmin 2, and the challenges that Pikmin 1 presented, albeit primarily in the form of Olimar's shipwrecked tale. But the mixture doesn't stop at the gameplay mechanics. Pikmin 4 also sees the return of just about everything, aside from Bulbmin, cowards. Many enemies from 1 and 2 make their triumphant return, as well as the newer, related enemies. Every Pikmin type from every game is here, along with the new ones.
They ask you how you are, you just have to say that you're fine when you're not really fine, but you just can't get into it because they would never understand.
The game sees the return of 2 of the series' most prominent characters, as well as the doppelgangers of 3's. We'll get there. The battle modes from previous games are here in the form of Dandori Battle. The challenge modes are here in the form of Dandori Challenges, and there are even cryptic references to the events of the other games. The Piclopedia and Treasure Log are back again, complete with notes. This game even had the stones to bring back the Swarm command, even if you have to do some legwork to obtain it. When I say this game has just about everything, I mean it. Pikmin 4 is crammed full. Every moment I played this game, I kept wondering what I did to deserve its existence. Pikmin 4 opens simply enough, putting us back in the role of Captain Olimar as he arrives in a large structure, what appears to be a 21st century human home. He's here under suspiciously similar circumstances to the first game, though this time he has the help of a space pup named Moss and, of course, the pickers of men. Through this tutorial in disguise, you quickly pick up everything you need to know to play the game. Olimar manages to send out a distress signal via the part he obtains in this opening chapter, leading to the signal's discovery by the Rescue Corps. This team of grade A bad hail from various planets throughout the galaxy, and they even have their own rescue pup named Ochi. As you'll soon discover, Pikmin 4 is a game mostly about dogs. I am okay with this. It's also with the introduction of the Rescue Corps that Pikmin, as a series, introduces another new element never before seen in previous games, a create-your-own player avatar. My initial reaction to this was utter concern. Since I've just run you through all 3 mainline games up to this point in this video, you can see why I rather have a fondness for the main characters of Pikmin and the way they are written. Having played 4 inside and out, I landed somewhere in the middle on this. The player character of Pikmin 4 never speaks, and you can customize their face, hair, body type, skin color, and primary color scheme for their team, and a welcome change to the traditional create a character formula seen in most games. Pikmin 4's is genderless. I played plenty of games in which you play as characters who never speak, and it felt as mildly immersive here as in other experiences, though you do get some dialogue options and conversations. In my truest Persona fashion, I tried to most often go for the weirdest ones. I also went for a purple and red color scheme, as these were my wedding colors. By the end of the game, I did feel somewhat of an attachment to my own personal character and the experiences they went through. That being said, I did find myself missing the already established playable characters of old. The rest of the team were interesting enough in their own right, but as you may expect, it's through characters from and connected to the other games that the real intrigue lies. Except for Yanni. This guy is a riot. I'm very keen on the idea of the Rescue Corps, however. Adding on to the regular collectibles of the game are other characters who have become stranded on the Pikmin planet. It turns out this happens to everyone, and Olimar's situation was not unique. Most of these characters come from other planets and end up stranded in caves, waiting unconsciously to be rescued by you and the Pikmin. Outside of Hokotate and Kopai, this introduces a colorful tapestry of varying planets that we've never heard of up till now. If we saw the Rescue Corps in other Pikmin games, or even got to play as them again, I wouldn't complain. The castaways you rescue become permanent additions to the starting area, and are all equally entertaining to talk to, if only to get additional perspectives on the Pikmin planet. Some of them even give you side missions. This ends up making the starting area feel incredibly fleshed out, and makes it a tangible, visible, constantly updating guidepost of your progress. The Rescue Corps initially traveled to PNF 404 to rescue Olimar, but quickly wind up in a disastrous situation where everyone is separated, and castaways are around every corner, needing rescued. This is how the first half of the game's plot unfolds, being one long continuous search for Olimar as you explore area by area. The Pikmin, as always, eager to help and follow the Rescue Corps' playable character immediately upon meeting them. Now, from the outset, it's easy for me to say that Pikmin 4 has the best gameplay of the entire series. This is not hyperbole, but rather a simple result of Nintendo taking everything that came before and learning from them. Gameplay in 4 is snappy, smooth, and responsive. There are consumable items to give you an edge in battle and new abilities thanks to things like Ochi and the Ice Pikmin, the latter of whom effectively take the Ultra Bitter Spray from Pikmin 2 and make it their own power. If I had one criticism for Pikmin 4's gameplay, it would be that the auto-target lock is a little too forgiving. I don't mean that in a game's too easy bro, get good type of nonsense. I just genuinely miss the feeling of manually aiming your Pikmin at everything. In truth, that felt more immersive to me. It's a minor criticism placed at the feet of the gargantuan mountain of things this game does right. The gameplay's depth expands further with Ochi, who isn't a typical playable Pikmin character. You see, Ochi doubles as both your second swappable character and a Pikmin himself, turning him into a jack-of-all-trades mechanic within the game. Like past Pikmin titles with multiple characters, you can freely swap to Ochi at any point and control him as you would a captain, the Pikmin following his every command. As you progress further, you'll unlock upgrades for Ochi that increase things like his attack power, carrying capability, swimming, and more. When playing as your avatar, you can command Ochi to do most things Pikmin themselves do, having him help alongside them, whether it's tearing down walls or killing enemies. He even serves as a method of transportation, carrying the playable avatar and Pikmin around like the cat bus from My Neighbor Totoro. From this vantage, you can charge into enemies, giving them a brief stun and launching every Pikmin on Ochi's back straight to the target. And for the Cupid's grenade on top, you can command Ochi to travel to specific points on the map, just as you would in Pikmin 3 with the Go Here feature. With Ochi having all of these abilities, the amount of potential for pure Dandori strategizing goes through the roof, especially in contrast to your main character, who can only command the Pikmin or use items. Ochi is the actual best and feels like a purely natural evolution of Pikmin's swap your character gameplay present in 2 and 3. By bringing back nearly every mechanic, Pikmin type, and enemies from all of the other games, Pikmin 4 feels like nothing short of a love letter to the entire series. Abundance is king, but in a way that keeps the concentrated focus of 1 and 3's gameplay so that this sheer amount of stuff never gets stale. By the time I rolled credits, having done everything I could possibly do, around 52 hours under my belt, I was still left wanting more, not wanting the experience to end, the experience I had been dreaming of for nigh on 11 years. Your experience through Pikmin 4 takes you trekking through 6 areas, though you could also count the starting area as its own since it evolves over the course of the game, much like the depths of the gameplay. Each area has plenty of treasure to collect on the surface, but with caves stealing back the spotlight, a lot of the collectibles went underground. Caves are where you'll not only find most mountains of treasure, but also castaways, unique enemies, and additional Pikmin, seen on most sublevels just hanging out, doing Pikmin things. How they ended up there, a question not important enough to answer. The caves work like they did in Pikmin 2, though time progresses ever so gradually on the surface while you're in them, as opposed to 2 where, well, time had no meaning. As with 2, the caves of 4 house all of the big boss enemies, leading to nice moments of casual horror such as this. This. And this. They even brought our boy Water Wraith back, in a cave eerily identical to the layout of 2's submerged castle, raising plenty more questions that are likely lost to the VGTI of several years' free time ago. Each cave presents players with a more industrial interior theme overall, things like an aquarium, household playroom, construction zone, and Zen garden all add to this untouchable, relaxing aesthetic that Pikmin 4 captures so well. And then there's the added night expeditions. Something many have pointed out turns the game from an RTS into a tower defense game. Having played dozens of hours of Bloons tower defense flash games on ramshackle websites in my spare time during web design class in 2010, I have to concur. Night expeditions are when Pikmin 4 shoves away the just mentioned relaxing aesthetic and trade for a handful of minutes of pure stress. But it's, Pikmin stress, so it's fun stress. Here and there during the daytime, you'll encounter leaflings, castaway characters who have morphed from their former selves into something resembling a fuzzy Pikmin. These characters are treated the same as castaways, i.e. collectibles to bring back to home base, but in order to rescue leaflings, you must complete their Dandori challenges. These are similar in function to the challenge mode of Pikmin 2 and 3, modes I always enjoyed tremendously, so the fact that they're incorporated into the story mode like this is the actual best. Your rescue of leaflings doesn't stop at this point, however. In order to cure these people of their condition, note, symptoms involve becoming obsessed with Dandori, Yanni tasks the player character to collect glow sap from luminals, mounds that only appear at night. These also serve as the home to the other new Pikmin type of the game, Glow Pikmin. Although writing the script, I hesitate to even call them Pikmin, as the game goes out of its way to imply they may be something else entirely. It wouldn't be a new Pikmin game without one more newly introduced cryptic mystery, would it? In fact, I think it would be more accurate to compare Glow Pikmin to the soot sprites from Spirited Away. They're small, numerous in number, spiritual in nature, and adore Competo candy, seen littered throughout their night levels, and something the Rescue Corps have taken to calling glow pellets. They are also quite similar to Bulbmin, and the closest thing we get to Bulbmin in this game, being immune to every hazard and inflicted with an odd inability to exit caves. Glow Pikmin are intrinsically linked to the luminals, essentially being to them what onions are to Pikmin in function. Each night expedition, the player must round up as many glow Pikmin as possible. The more glow pellets you have carried to the luminals, the more little Caspers you acquire. This is a timed warm-up period, after which all enemies on the map go into a crazed state, eyes aglow, and begin making beelines for where the closest luminal. this is yet another part of the game in which you can really flex your Dandori muscles, gaining the ability to have Ochi guard Illuminol for you, at least to the best of his ability. When faced with enemies, Glow Pikmin can be charged up into a big ball of energy, called a Glow Mob, which works similarly to Ochi's charging move. Successfully fend off all enemies, or just survive until the end of the night, and you're awarded one quantity of Glow Sap, and a handful of Glow Pikmin seeds, depending on how many you reared the night previous. This is important as it allows the player to create Glow Pikmin when exploring caves, giving you an extra ace in the hole if you're having a tough time. Night expeditions are also where you'll encounter some familiar faces. Nintendo did something here that felt like them reaching back into time, to my childhood self, encountering the Smoky Prog for the first time, having read about it on the internet, and assuring that version of myself that, no, we didn't forget. As you've no doubt pieced together, I lost all of my chill when discovering this in one of the later game Night Expeditions. Old Smoky is back 3 games later, and works very similarly to how it did in Pikmin 1, but with some new moves, such as a roar causing the Pikmin to also lose all chill, and waves of the smog stuff emitting out of its back. Like that, these are also instant death. Even with these things in mind, the Smoky Prog feels like an overall less difficult challenge here than 1, possibly because you also have way more options at your disposal in this game. The Pikmin 4 player character is a walking tank compared to 1's Olimar. Furthering this, Pikmin 4 took the very basis of this theory and tossed it into the garbage heap, presumably where Louie also hangs out. You see, Pikmin 4 has Smoky Progs, pardon my French, coming out of the wazoo. Just when you thought you were done with one, another will appear in another night expedition, or the one in the final cave of the game. This does make the malformed nature of the Prog feel less like a special one-off occurrence like it was in the first game, though to give credit where it's due, I do like the mysteries this game sets up and their relationship with Luminols and Glow Pikmin. Now, I'll be the first to admit that my worshipping the ground Pikmin 4 walks on can be attributed in no small part to my crippling wait for the game to be a reality. I would like to think, however, setting my own biases aside, that Pikmin 4 is just a very well-made video game, even to those who have never touched a Pikmin game before in their life. This is a double-edged sword, however, when it comes to the game's story. A story Nintendo has polished to such an eye-watering sheen that one could view Pikmin 4 in a vacuum, without needing any knowledge of anything that happened beforehand. This isn't just a Nintendo thing, a lot of companies do this for long-awaited sequels in long-running franchises, a bid to usher in new players, without scaring off a large portion of sales from people who are afraid they won't get what's going on unless they've played the other games. Making the story approachable as a jumping-in point can be handled in a lot of ways, and some games do it better, but the way Nintendo went for in Pikmin 4 is, in my opinion, whack. Pikmin 1 and 2 have always been very obviously linked. The first game in the series, starring Olimar with his first ever trip to the Pikmin planet, and the direct sequel, a sequel which has the events happening immediately after 1's ending. 3 is much more ambiguous, but in a refreshing way. Olimar and Louie are back to the planet again, clearly sometime after 2. Don't forget, Olimar confirms it's his 3rd visit to the Pikmin planet, but they're relegated as background characters, while the Copites serve as our point of focus. Going into 4, I thought the Rescue Corps would be this, in a situation similar to 3's. Instead, Captain Olimar gets a very hefty amount of focus in this game, being the first character you play as, the main goal to find for a good portion of the story, having his own side story to play later on, and helping out the main crew in the latter part of the game. And don't get me wrong, while I love any and all character development we get for Olimar over the course of the series, 4 has me questioning the man's sanity, as well as his memories. From Olimar's perspective within Pikmin 4, he acts as if this is his first visit to the Pikmin planet, that this is his first time meeting the Pikmin. By the end of the game, players are led to believe that it very well may be. Olimar has dreams of other Pikmin games, feelings of bad times to come with references in things like Pikmin 3's theme, etc., etc. Boiled down, Pikmin 4 feels like a what-if scenario to Pikmin 1's bad ending, showing us what happens to Olimar if that ending were actually what transpired, plus Moss being there, instead of the game's best ending, which leads into Pikmin 2. To be frank, this isn't a theory video, and I'm not here to dissect what could be going on, but that's the gist of it, helpfully demonstrated by this chart. My main point here is that in an attempt to make the game a good starting point for new Pikmin fans, Nintendo has done the story equivalent of a New Game Plus, only the new game is, what happens to Olimar. Saving him later in the story unlocks Olimar's shipwrecked tale, a sort of mini-story mode the player can partake in at any point thereafter, complete with its own save data. This game is like a non-stop 5-course meal. The tale has players essentially playing a miniaturized version of Pikmin 1, where you must collect Olimar's ship parts in a certain amount of days in order to get the best ending. The story of this mode plays out in the fashion I just described previously, which is why the what-if nature of it feels so intensely prevalent throughout. In Nintendo's second part of Ask the Developer, Pikmin 4's planning director, Yutaka Hidemuki, who oversaw much of the game's story, said he would leave the timeline, quote, to the player's imaginations, unquote. This devilishly clever man had a similar role in Pikmin 3's story, by his own admission, meaning I have him to thank for questioning my own sanity. With all this being said, the story in Pikmin 4 is mind-bendingly fascinating, and a tale that left me guessing at every turn. The first half of this pizza of a game is primarily focused on rescuing Olimar, but once rescued, we get into the back half, when you're already stuffed full of pizza but you have to test your limits and keep reaching for more.
How can you sit there and eat pizza?
Spoilers, by the way, from here on out. Pikmin 4 is relatively new, and while this entire video is filled with spoilers for the entirety of the series, I've decided to warn you all directly in the script at this point before proceeding. Attempting to leave the planet with Olimar in tow reveals that Ochi can't leave. He's adapted to the planet's environment, sprouting a leaf at the end of his tail, much like Moss before him. It's back to the planet for everyone as they determine how to cure Ochi, through the help of a group of Kopites who also just happen to be on the planet, or more specifically, the veterinarian of these Kopites by the name of Nell. Remember me mentioning that this game features doppelgangers of 3's core cast? That wasn't just me trying to keep you watching the video with an oddball statement. Pikmin 4 indeed pulls a bizarro Jerry Seinfeld on the Kopites. For what it's worth, these don't seem to be alternate versions of 3's characters, but rather other Kopites who are closely related to those 3, hinted at in parts of their dialogue if you decide to chat them up at the home base. It's through these very chats that you also discover Kopite is close to hitting its food crisis, though not quite there yet, firmly planting Pikmin 4's story somewhere before 3's, even if we're busting out alternate timelines in this. As revealed in the fake-out credits, upon rescuing Olimar and getting the pre-post-game ending, and in a shock to absolutely no one, Louie is seen strutting around the planet by himself. After playing through Pikmin 4 in its entirety, I can safely say that Louie wants to live here. Louie quickly becomes the primary antagonist to Pikmin 4 from this point forward, with there not really being an antagonist beforehand, unless you count Dondoried-up Leafling Olimar. Unlike him though, Louie is fully cognizant of what he's doing, and proceeds to kidnap the castaway Kopites for reasons unknown, forcing the player to Dondori battle him in retrieval. Through logs, you gradually discover what Louie's up to, why he's on the Pikmin planet this time, and his general thoughts on things. He was sent by Prez to rescue Olimar, but shortly into the mission, Louie abandons this goal and focuses on eating the local wildlife. Most of his actions in the game are driven purely by self-interest, and by this point, his list of crimes, purposeful and accidental, are enough to rival the entire Piklopedia. After several hijinks-filled romps and the unlocking of 2 additional areas, you track Louie down to a cave in the final area of the game, the Primordial Thicket. This cave, Cavern for a King, is the cave to end all caves, clocking in at an overwhelming 20 sublevels. For contrast, Pikmin 2's final cave only had 14 sublevels, pushing Cavern for a King up to the biggest cave in the entire series. While not every floor features one, the cave feels almost like a boss rush. Nearly every floor pits you against some kind of challenge, usually in the form of a bigger foe or returning boss. By this point in the game, having done literally every last possible thing I could do before entering Cavern for a King, I could feel the impending end of Pikmin 4 closing around me like a vice. Within over a dozen sublevels and a smattering of Louis-based missions post-game, Pikmin 4 would close, a long-awaited experience, fickle as a flame and just as bright. As mentioned earlier in this video, Pikmin 4 is a game about dogs. Everywhere you look in this game, it's all dogs, all the time. This comes to a head in the final boss of the game, the Ancient Sirehound, a gigantic doggo the Rescue Corps must obtain a cell sample from in order to cure Ochi of his condition, the obvious link being that they're both canines. Much of this battle feels like an echo of Pikmin 2's Titan Dweevil, what with the multiple elemental attacks and Louis riding atop the creature. Unlike 2's ambiguity on Louis' intentions, 4 blatantly establishes him as actively trying to stop the player character. The battle can be tricky if you're not careful, especially in the final phase, as the Sirehound can utilize the same hazardous smog the Smoky Prog uses throughout Pikmin 4. This smog, like electricity in Pikmin 2, spells instant death for your Pikmin, even white Pikmin, meaning a quick game over if you rush around the arena without care, like yours truly did. My excuse is that I was pretty distracted by the tour de force that is Pikmin 4's final boss theme, a multi-layered track that switches up instruments each elemental phase the boss enters. Pikmin 4 has gone heavy rock, and none of us will ever be the same again. The ending goes by pretty quickly. Our big doggo boss is friendly now, Ochi is cured, Louis still isn't arrested, and the whole crew pack up and leave, Moss demonstrating that she can take care of the Pikmin without them there. Of course, the game probably isn't over for you by this point. Pikmin 4 is jammed full of side goodies to enjoy, including but not limited to collecting every treasure, reading a novel's worth of notes on everything, completing Louis' side missions to unlock a captain carrying ability, Dandori Trials, and Olimar's side campaign. When you do these is up to you, but the game stays as open as ever, even after beating it. For my own case, I cleared almost all of these up before trekking into the final cave. I wanted that cave to be the very last thing I did. In doing so, I was delighted to discover the purple and white Pikmin can now afford their own housing. Your rewards for some of the game's trickier challenges are their very own onions, also a series first. Thanks to this, all I had left post-cave were Louis' little side missions, all involving food. Once complete, I put the game down, parting ways with the game I had been waiting an entire decade for. I'm not one for replaying games immediately after finishing them. I usually prefer to stew in the vibes the game left me with, the feelings and emotions I had playing it, to allow my brain to sort the entire experience out in such a way that when I look upon the game in retrospect, all of those condensed thoughts are there to remind me why I love said game so much. And then, in possibly a couple years, maybe several, I come back to it. Pikmin 4, having arrived well into my young adult life and finding me on the brink of my 30s, ended up being a lot of things. When Pikmin 3 released, I played it through the lens of a fresh out of high school graduate, his future still undecided. When Pikmin 1 and 2 released, in ancient times, I played them through the lens of a child, exploring uncharted territory in a medium I was just beginning to appreciate. Pikmin 4, then, was played through the lens of an adult more sure of his place in the world, married, a kid soon to be on the way, but also an adult who had become world-weary, who had been through a pandemic, who had seen the truer, harsher sides of people in just 10 years. 10 years that felt like an unfathomable lifetime of living. This made Pikmin 4 feel more like a reprieve from life's stresses, rather than an accompaniment to my everyday, like 1, 2, and to a lesser extent, 3 were. 4 felt like shutting out those stresses, putting on my rose-tinted glasses, and wondering how 1 hour could go by so fast. Removing the veneer of nostalgia and looking at Pikmin 4 objectively, It's easy to see that this game is simply a very good video game, irregardless of how much it warped me back into feeling like a kid again. It's probably the easiest Pikmin game to play, both in terms of fidelity and difficulty, which I don't see as a bad thing. I'm still a bit befuddled by what's happening with the story, but not negatively so. If alternate timelines is a road we're forging, I'm all for seeing where that road leads. Look at me, look at this video, you should already know this. The way we go doesn't matter to me, as long as Nintendo keeps supplying me more Pikmin. All of this is to say that Pikmin 4 is one of the greats, not just within its own series, but in the entire pantheon of Nintendo's original IPs. The game really does a good overarching job of bringing in the best aspects of the 3 mainline titles that came before it, which I feel is why it's so easy to get into, whether you're a new or old player. The same goes for the difficulty, made artificially harder if you're perhaps new to Pikmin and aren't quite used to the way it works. With all of this in mind, Pikmin 4 is this meme brought into a physical manifestation, a game carefully pieced together, thoughtfully designed, in a way that feels airtight. This stuff will not go stale. With Pikmin 4's producer, Takashi Tezuka, stating in an interview that they at Nintendo will try not to keep fans waiting as long for a hypothetical Pikmin 5, I must simply respond with a fry squint, and also a tiny glimmer of hope. No matter, after the 10-year wait for Pikmin 4, I'm fairly broken as it is.
Yeah?
There's an ant.
Oh, there's an ant?
Yeah. He's gonna buy a stick.
Pikmin has never been Nintendo's golden child. It's a popular enough series, but one that has always felt niche in comparison to juggernauts like Mario and Zelda, though less so in Pikmin 4's era with the big influx of new fans. And yet, all this time later, it's clear the series is still very near and dear to not just Miyamoto-san's heart, but the hearts of the many developers who worked on these games. Pikmin, quite honestly, changed my life. It changed the way I looked at video games forever. It changed the way I approached difficulties in both games and real life. It changed my past friendship by deepening it and creating some of the best memories I've ever had. It changed my day-to-day simply by inspiring me to create this YouTube channel, the very same YouTube channel I'm sitting here now typing out the words for in what I can only imagine will be a 2+ hour long video. I've never really been what you would call, massive air quotes here, a part of the Pikmin community. I'm just not social enough for that. But I know, out there, everyone else who loves this series knows exactly what I'm rambling on about, why it's so special, why it feels unlike other Nintendo games, why people on the internet can make hours-long discussions about it. These aren't just some quirky, real-time strategy games with cutesy alien creatures. These games plumb the very depths of your soul, explore avenues of themes and emotions so raw that no other Nintendo series dare venture there. It just so happens to be laid atop the foundation of pure addictive gameplay, creating, with flying colors, a seamless marriage between the two roles. Here, at the end of this video, I would like to issue a special thanks to my aunt for being the instigator of my relationship with Pikmin. If it hadn't been for her, Pikmin, and Animal Crossing, by extension, would not have hit me during my formative years, and that's just a timeline I'd rather not be in. Thank you very much. Where I'll be at when a Pikmin 5 someday manifests into reality, I cannot say. I'll be a proper dad by that point, and it's hard to pinpoint where the channel will be by then. When I try to envision it, all I can see is a murky haze out of my reach. I digress. After 2 hours of watching this, go buy all the Pikmin games if you haven't already. They need the support. Because of the way these games have released over time, the series, incoming pun intended, grew up with me, as I grew up with it. It has been a part of the larger majority of my life, a constant friend, and every time I finish one of these games, my brain can't help itself. It's immediately pouncing onto any info for where and when the next one could be. Almost every major era of my life, it inevitably shows up. Pikmin, in every facet, reflects life itself. These games make me want to go outside and enjoy nature, absorb the outside world, something I cannot say about literally any other game I have ever played. Through the good times and the bad, the best, and the utterly miserable, Pikmin has been there for it all. Pikmin is my happy place. This was VGTI. I'll catch you on the next go-around.